Test. It's okay. I'm gonna get started in just a second here. Okay, test. Looks like everything's coming through okay. Gonna get started in just a second. Yeah, okay. Alrighty, well hello everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you've had a good week and an enjoyable weekend as well. I want to take a moment to say thank you again for the support on the Elden Ring and the Dark Souls 2 streams. It's been a lot of fun getting a chance to experience all that with you. And also the Dragon Ball stream last week. You know, I appreciate the incentive to get back into the series, reread some of those old chapters. I haven't read in a while. It kind of rekindled my interest in the content. And I think I have like even more of an appreciation for those fights than I had previously. So, getting a chance to, you know, listen to people's opinions on that matchup and then go in and then listen to the different arguments was a lot of fun. Also, makes me appreciate Toriyama's like style of conveying weight and power and like the flow of combat. He's such a, or was sadly, such an expert at really putting making those fights feel so kinetic and so weighty and so consequential. Like every single attack, every single blow, every hit, it just feels like you can really like almost hear it through the page with the weight of it and the smack of it and everything. So that was really cool. And I feel like we had a really good discussion. It was great to get on with Mr. Narrative on voice chat. So yeah, thanks again for folks who showed up, and hoping to have more discussions along that line in the future. Definitely happy to go back to Dragon Ball content at some point, and also to keep on with Naruto. Open to suggestions. Thought about maybe checking out JJK at some point. Don't know if you all would be interested in that in particular, but do let me know. But yeah, oh hey, the Egg Prophet has appeared. Hello, Egg Prophet. How's it going? Thank you for your comments on that other video and for you know, the friendly back and forth. I really appreciate it. In regards to the streaming schedule and all that, I have at least one other regular viewer who is like I really appreciate when he shows up. Like, I'm sure you'll bump into him at some point. He usually does so when it's like 2 or 3 in the morning for him. And I'm usually free most of the day on Sundays. So if I can like adjust my schedule a little bit and make it easier for people, you know, if I happen to have multiple people who are in a different time zone and that's just more convenient, then I'm happy to do that. I kind of started streaming at this time because it was convenient for me. It just sort of, you know, happened to be convenient. I didn't put a ton of thought into it, but yeah, obviously, like I want to hang out with people and chat with people. And if there's a better time for that, I can be flexible. So just let me know. But yeah, how's everything going? How's your week been? So yeah, so for tonight specifically, as usual, definitely open to kind of jumping around and talking about different things. But my thought was to jump back into the Kakuzu versus Pain discussion at some point. It doesn't have to be tonight, but at some point I do want to get through this video here, especially since I know that our Kakuzu god has worked on it, and I want to, you know, kind of get through sharing my thoughts. We can then go back to the Weeaboo debate, or we could swap over to that if you like. But a lot of the stuff they talk about winds up being brought up kind of more succinctly here. And also gives us the opportunity to talk about like how to organize ideas and put them into a video. Not to be too arrogant about it or anything, but just like, I can share my thoughts on what came across well in the video, like what scans were brought to, in my opinion, effectively, what maybe editing could have been done to be a little bit more transparent, stuff like that. So for example, I think 2 weeks ago we were talking about how Choji in the background, we get to see a little bit of a clip of him tangoing with Kakuzu, but then it cuts off before we really get to see the full fight, and sort of the thing kind of obscuring the fight was unfortunate. Little things like that that might be fun to kind of break down. But anyway, for tonight, I want to kind of dive back into this video. First, I want to talk a little bit about Kakuzu and the Rakiri and Kakashi and the Asura path and how all those things are connected. But let me check up in the comments before I get too deep into that. Oh, H&H, hey, how's it going? Thank you for stopping by the streams earlier this week. It's good to see you again. H&H says, JJK would be insanely interesting to see you cover because so much stuff is undecided and weird. Like the scaling can be very cryptic when there isn't direct connections, and some amp stuff is weird. Okay, cool, yeah. I had, I checked it out before. There was, I think Noodles in the Swagkage debate mentioned that that the Tsukuyomi was apparently like Gojo's infinity, and I hadn't heard of that before, and so I looked it up, and I wound up disagreeing with him. There's a short section in my video that kind of explains why, but it was fun to get into that first, and I started going through the series and then just got sidetracked. But yeah, if it's something you'd be interested in talking about, I'd be happy to check it out. Would you recommend the manga or the anime? I think I had gotten a little bit further in the manga than the anime at the time, but I'm kind of open to whatever. Oh, hey, Dr. Pest, it's good to see you again. How you doing? Have you had a good week? Have you been up to anything fun? I like your profile picture there, or your avatar, whatever the proper term for it is. I've just been going back into some Bloodborne lore recently, which of course has imagery that's very similar to that. Don't know if you've excuse me, if you checked that out at all, or if you're into that series, but man, the imagery in that game is just, it's so thick and rich with atmosphere, and there's a unique sense of dread as you're going through and just like kind of trying to survive and crawling through this like nightmare infested town and beyond. Highly recommended if you're into like the Souls style games. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna start by talking a little bit about the Diamond Morph and how it connects to the Rakiri. Of course, feel free to jump in and share your thoughts at any point. And I'm going to be presenting my own like attempt to sort of scale Kakuzu's durability and sort of talk a little bit about power scaling terminology. Of course, I'm totally open to being challenged on any of this stuff. What I was trying to do over the past couple of weeks is try to get some actual tangible like numbers or some like hard facts related to Kakuzu's durability and stuff like that, because one of the entertaining but sometimes frustrating parts of these debates is that, or just versus battles in general, is that so many attacks don't have clearly defined upper limits, and as a result you can always kind of fall back on like, well, we don't really know if Kakashi could have done a stronger Raikiri, or if like Kakuzu could have done a stronger False Darkness, so it's not really fair to say that the False Darkness like caps out at the equivalent of 2 Raikiri or something like that, and you can use that sort of argumentation to get like to back out from or to divert away from challenges to your character's feats, essentially. And I guess like one way to not exactly combat that, but to try and reconcile that, is just to acknowledge that because of so many ambiguities in talking about these characters, especially in like hypothetical battles outside of what these characters would normally do, like Kakuzu probably wouldn't normally fight Pain, although I guess he did in the in that one game. But when trying to be fair about these hypothetical discussions, trying to identify as many like concrete things as you can be useful in keeping the conversations fair. And so sometimes just shaking hands and agreeing, okay, we're going to only use in-character feats, right? We're only going to use, like for the Diamond Morph, for example, it's possible that the Diamond Morph could scale way, way beyond whatever we see on panel. But for the purposes of the debate, we're just going to agree, no, let's just use the feats that we have, because otherwise we're just like veering into no limits fallacy territory. In fact, Kakuzu himself here says it's true, physical attacks are virtually useless against me. And I know there are other translations out there that where he says like I'm immune to physical damage, essentially, like some paraphrase of that. And so if you let Kakuzu do an LF on himself and you go along with that, it can kind of make it hard to have a fair discussion going forward. Basically, the argument becomes, well, you don't know that he can't tank like one of 8th Gate guy's kicks to the face, because that technically counts as a physical attack, right? So you just don't know, so we can't talk about his durability. It's kind of unfortunate. So what I like to do is to try to take the approach of arguing that his durability kind of caps out at around the Rakiri's level, and I'll explain what I mean. It's a little takes a minute to unpack, but anyway, let's check comments real quick. H&H says manga for sure, but the anime has different scaling discussions. Most people don't go over it, but the artistic direction of the anime has helped me settle certain discussions, like if Cleave is invisible. Cleave, okay. So it could be a useful secondary resource. Yeah, absolutely. I think, obviously the anime and movies and stuff like that, or the various adaptations of any given like source content can deviate and diverge narratively, and they can portray fights differently. Like we've talked about how this fight with Kakuzu is a lot different in the anime. But a lot of times the way that the anime functions, for lack of a better word, is that it literally just brings to life, like it adds animation literally to what's happening on panel. And as long as there's not a fundamental change in the outcome of the fight, or like massive details are changed, then it can kind of help you gain insight into the intentions, I think. So it really depends, but let's take a look at, see if I can find it real quick. Itachi versus Sasuke. So this is something that came up in the debate as well, the Noodles versus Swaikage. That on panel, when Itachi starts using the Amaterasu and having it like chase behind Sasuke, it's kind of hard to see what exactly it's doing, right? Like, is he casting one of them and it just has like 3 little poofs to it, or is he like just barely missing Sasuke? And in this beat in particular, is he casting one at Sasuke and then having it like chase behind him, and Sasuke's just trying to like outrun it in a straight line? Or is he quote unquote flowing it towards Sasuke? Is he basically doing a primitive version, or like a prototype version, so to speak, of Kagutsuchi, and then basically like moving the like bending it around to follow Sasuke? And it's really hard to tell in the anime because it's static, right? So you can't see how it's moving. But here it definitely kind of looks more like Sasuke is just running in a straight line, and Itachi is well, up until that point it looks like Itachi's just casting it straight forward and he's just outpacing it. But then this happens, and we see Itachi's eye turn, and then it hits Sasuke. So you could look at this and be like, okay, what they were trying to convey in the manga was that it was being like bent towards him, and we just didn't get a chance to really see that because that's a limitation of the static medium or whatever. But it's better illustrated here. So I think the anime can definitely help shed light on some of the intentions of the manga in some cases, right? H&H then says, yeah, the JJK anime is more of like a 12 episode thing. Oh, I gotcha, okay. So it doesn't struggle with filling content, so there isn't a large amount of change. Oh, is it a complete story, so to speak? Like, did they just decide, okay, we're only going to do up to episode 12 and then keep it self-contained? Or have they just not like gotten to the next season, so to speak? Either way, I guess I probably have time to check out both of them, Like, I could go a few volumes in the manga and then check out the anime, see how it compares. Might take me a while to catch up, but it's way shorter than Naruto overall, right? Like, I mean, obviously the anime is, if it's 12 versus however many hundreds of episodes there were in Shippuden, but yeah, I'll totally be down to check that out. Do you know, is there I don't know anything about like the debate scene, so to speak, with regards to JJK. Are there people who are actively debating about it, either inverse or across universes? Or is it kind of like Naruto, and things have kind of died down a little bit these days? I do, like, every week or so I try to check, like, I go to YouTube and I search for Naruto debate, and I filter by most recent, and apart from just like a bunch of shorts that look like they're generated by AI, there's not a whole lot going on unless I'm just not looking in the right places. Maybe they're not getting uploaded. H&H says it was probably because at the time the manga wasn't finished or very deep, so they wanted to keep pace with the manga. 12 episode anime or just a trend, kind of. Okay, that's fine. That makes sense. But yeah, I was really enjoying it. My partner, she was like, not a big fan of the voices, given that they were. I was watching the English dub at first, and they're pretty over the top, but I love it. The sort of anime cheesiness. But yeah, I'll check it out for sure. I'll stay in touch with y'all about like how far I get and what I think. I know I also owe somebody, was it Mr. Narrative? I owe them going back and giving Dragon Ball Super another chance at some point, so add that to the list. Egg Prophet says, I don't think there's such debates for JJK TBH. Okay, yeah, that's fair. I feel like I've seen a couple of like Kakashi versus Gojo debates out there somewhere, just because they're similar characters. They have like a similar aura, I guess you could say. And they, but usually when I see them, it's like, this battle is not even close, or, something like that. It seems to be that there isn't much of a back and forth debate. They're already kind of leaning very hard one way or the other, if that makes sense. H&H says, nah, I'd say overall, the mainstream fiction comm is pretty dead, but there are some JJK debaters. Okay, yeah. I mean, I guess it makes sense. Like, how many times can you debate Minato versus Itachi or whatever? And that's the paradox of it, I guess, right? Because on the one hand, you want to talk about the popular characters to draw people's attention. Probably not a whole lot of people out there debating, like, I don't know, Atsui versus whatever, the chubby guy who's Akatsuchi. Yeah, Akatsuki, I think, something like that. The guy who hangs out with Onoki, right? Like, even Onoki is a pretty popular character, but like, I haven't seen anybody debate him versus anyone. Like, Onoki versus Sage Jiraiya might be kind of fun. But even the Akatsuki members, like, can't remember the last time I saw a date or a debate. I've seen a couple Saucery a long time ago. But yeah, guess it is kind of a niche thing to begin with, but it's fun. I really enjoy it. To me, in addition to just being interesting to kind of go over debates, it's just an excuse to kind of go back and, reread and re-enjoy the chapters that are being talked about. And honestly, it's just kind of fun to see people who care, like, enough about a manga that's, several years old by now, to spend the amount of time and effort that it takes. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not great at math. I'm not about to, like, start coming out with a whole bunch of complicated calcs or pixel scaling or anything like that. So when I see people do it genuinely effectively and, present, like, these elaborate arguments, it just demonstrates a level of, like, care and interest in the subject that's really cool. It's kind of cool to see that still being kept alive, like, all these years later. H&H says the Naruto community's downfall was a community complaining about the lack of new topics, despite being faced with new topics, and just being bored at the prospect of debating it, honestly. Sorry, do you mean, like, debating, like, conducting debates in an honest way? Or do you mean, like, honestly, that's your take? Either way, yeah. It's tough, right? Because a new topic being introduced means a whole lot more research and people taking the time to hash things out and, like, compare calcs or whatever, which I think is healthy, right? That's what stimulates discussion, like people coming in with edgy takes and, like, weird perspectives and getting the discussion going. What was really funny? I'm trying to rack my brain for the last trend, or the last spike. Honestly, okay, yeah, that makes sense, no problem. Was the whole, like, was it Northern Lion? No, not Northern Lion. What the hell is that guy's name? Something Lion. Over on TikTok, that was saying something about Naruto not being planetary, and I guess that made a lot of people upset on TikTok, and then it kind of spilled over into the YouTube community. Am I getting that right? And that was kind of interesting, because then it brought up the multiversal Naruto discussion again, and that was kind of stimulating to the discourse. But I guess again, like there's only so much you can get excuse me, out of that. Right? It's not that complicated of a subject to be able to resolve together, especially as a group. So, I don't know, H&H, what would you, assuming that you are personally still interested in this, in the debate scene in Naruto, what characters would you like to see talked about, or what do you think would kind of help inject some liveliness back into the scene? Oh, Six made a bit on it. Okay. It was fun, but it brought up all the wanky uni arcs, and it was something for sure. Yep. Yeah, I'm not I have some thoughts. We can talk about universal scaling if you want. My quick, elevator pitch style like recap is just that I think all the ones that I've heard are based on a misunderstanding of the Sharingan and/or of Kaguya's dimensions, and there's a real strong desire to make her dimensions out to be universes, which even if you do semantically decide that they count as quote-unquote universes, the whole point of terms like universal or mountain level or island level or whatever is not to say that, like, if a character's island level, they can blow up anything that is technically an island, right? I'm sure you're familiar with this, but like the tiers that are defined by VSB and places like that are specific, exemplary, standard islands or standard mountains or universes. And to be universal, you have to be able to create or destroy with one gesture attack or whatever, something that is the size and composition, the amount of energy and mass that's in our universe, or something equivalent, right? The equivalent of all the shit that's in our known universe. So, cool, Kaguya has a dimension with a planet and a sun. Blowing that up does not prove that she can blow up everything in our universe, the entire fucking thing, with one like truth-seeking orb. So I guess that's my whole argument, honestly. Anyway, H&H says 100% Darui. Oh, Guru, yeah. The 5 Kage are all interesting people to cover, but they never do. I also think debating topics with these characters would inject some life into it. Yeah, for sure. I never see anybody talk about, by Guru, you mean like the fusion with Obito, or the one that's fused with Yamato during the war? Either would be quite interesting, but considering that, like, the one during the war was clashing with Hashirama's 5 clones with the 5 different nature styles and all that, like, that would be a lot of fun to talk about. Pretty dynamic fight for sure. But yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't know if anybody's done something like this before, but if the 5 Kage were to all fight each other simultaneously in like a big open brawl, where it's not like, Tsunade goes up against Onoki and then goes up against the Raikage or something like that. Literally, they're all just like all 5 of them going berserk on each other. Who would survive? Like, who would be the last person standing? That'd be kind of a fun thing to talk about, yeah. Darui as well. Do you are you of the opinion that Darui's laser circus is literally light speed, or do you think that's more of a hypothetical, or a what's the word for it? Like an exaggeration, rhetorical something. H&H says it also stems from a lack of reading. Reading comprehension. The Amino Minaka statement is something I hate going into because I feel people have huge problems with thinking of words into separate contexts. Yes. Well, I might do a stream. We can talk about it tonight for sure, but I might do a stream that's focused on just going over databook stuff, because in Noodle's video in particular, I think he's about to actually show that clip. Yeah, there's quite... Oh, this is actually from the chapter itself, so that doesn't count. But there's quite a few things that come up that are databook statements, like Yukito having mastered her Biju, which may be absolutely true. It could be that she mastered her Biju, that's fine. But there seems to be like a veneration of databook statements where people just accept them as literally true, and not to strawman anybody, but it seems to me like sometimes the fact that they're written by Kishimoto and they're called data books, right? We go in with the assumption that they're all just to be taken at face value. And when you actually go through them, there's a lot of stuff in there that's just not written with a reliable narrator. Because honestly, it's fun, right? Like, you want to write a book that's about these cool jutsu and cool characters and stuff. You want to hype them up a little bit. So Tsunada's Heavenly Foot of Pain, described in the second data book, says something along the lines of, it can, like, nobody can be hit by it and avoid pulverization, right? So, and if you really take that literally, then that means that she could, that she basically has a universal AP foot attack. And there's no need for us to take that literally, right? Like, we can just look at that and just understand that it's meant to be used as a hype statement, essentially, to just kind of drum up enthusiasm for it. So the heel swung down and Anger makes the ground rumble with an ultra hard smackdown. Defense crystallizes. Yeah, nothing and no one could receive a direct hit and avoid pulverization. So yeah, she's one-shotting like Momoshiki or whatever, right? Obviously not. So if you go through, you start to find, like, again, like an inner hell as eternal as heaven and earth. Okay, so the Tsukuyomi realm itself, when it's put into Kakashi's head, is as eternal as heaven and earth. What, like, I don't know if that's meant to be taken literally, right? So if you apply that same kind of skepticism, or at least context, to other statements as well, like, say, the Amaterasu, or the Mangekyo Sharingan being able to see literally everything in the entire universe, you start to get a clearer picture of how these are meant to be read. And honestly, it's more fun if you just approach it that way, right? Each tab creating as many red belts. Yeah, there's so many kind of, like, poetic and fun descriptions here. There's no need to, like, water them all down into these, ultra specific statements. Anyway, I'm kind of getting off topic, but yeah, hopefully that makes some sense. Let me catch up here. H&H says, like, we see these realms being transferred, not created, and people still think created means literally created every single time. Oh yeah, like, I mean, I think by the creation of the new time space thing with the massive TSO towards the end of the fight, it seems pretty clear that she's about to create a new space, but that doesn't necessarily mean she's creating an entire universe. And also, it could just be that she's taking all the matter in her current space, and then she's, like, reducing it to nothing and then reforming it or something like that. Egg Prophet says the 5 Kages all against each other simultaneously is surprisingly such a good idea. Oh, cool, yeah, thanks. The Raikage would go full berserk mode, while Tsuchikage would be dying in the corner from his back. Yeah, he'd immediately just, like, fly up and then be gloating all over everybody, and then start complaining about his back and accomplish nothing. Mr. Narrative, hey, good to see you. How you doing? You haven't missed much. We're just kind of hanging out and chatting about data books, chatting about JJK, chatting about universal scaling, planetary scaling. We're just kind of having an open discussion. At some point, I'm going to transition to talking about the Brutal Honesty video. We're going to pick up where we left off, and I wanted to talk a bit about the durability of Kakuzu, like his base durability, and then Kakashi's Rakiri and the scaling for that. So just talk about, like, durability scaling. We haven't missed much. We're still kind of, like, getting off the ground, so to speak, just having fun with it. H&H then says, at the Egg Prophet, for sure, just think with the whole definitely prove this mindset that debate community has, it would be hard to come to a conclusion while also being assertive. Yeah, that makes sense. Dr. Pest says, so for me, this Yukito thing is that in reality, another technique was going to be shown with Hidan, but since the arc was cut, it seems more like an inconsistency / plotting mistake that they beat Yukito. Oh, I see. Interesting. So is your opinion that Yukito would have been able to beat the two of them without that you think it was kind of like an ass pull that she lost to them? Am I understanding correctly? H&H says, by created thing I meant Amino Minaka, by the way. Oh, is that, I guess I get confused between Amino Minaka and Amino Tejikara. Is, let me just look it up. I thought Amino Minaka was the one where she, transfers between universes. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, Tejikara is, Sasuke's. Yeah, let me just read it real quick. Oh, you're saying this part here, creating dimensions as she pleases, the divine power with the founder. So are you saying that, like, people will read this and then they come to the conclusion that based on this phrasing, she's just, like, spontaneously creating the dimensions that she's warping back and forth to? That would be weird. Not calling you out here, but it would be weird if other people came to that conclusion, because I mean, it also says she forcibly drags them into a particular dimension. In an instant, she can move the world she's in together with other people to a different dimension. Yeah, which activates, she uses up a large amount of chakra. I mean, like, it seemed pretty clear to me that she's just moving them back and forth between the different spaces. And then also with the massive TSO, she can, or expansive TSO, she can potentially create or at least remake a current space. But to do that, she also needs all of the chakra from, like, the entire world, right? She can't just do that spontaneously herself. She needs to drain it from everybody else. Anyway. Catching up here a little bit. Oh, you joined the server. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I am still in the process of, like, setting everything up and adding descriptions and everything. But I finally actually got around to doing it. So if at any point, you know, we do like a debate or something like that, or not a debate, but like a conversation like we did with Mr. Narrative last week, or people just want to use the server to chat or like share scans or videos or whatever. If there's anything you want me to react to, feel free to, like, suggestions. You can always feel free to send me a direct message, or you can put it in there in the server as well for people to go over. Really just hoping it's going to be a useful resource for us to have conversations and stuff. So yeah, let me know if there's any suggestions or anything you want me to change about it. I'm totally open to iterating on it. H&H says, people think every time the dimensions transfer, she's creating the dimension over and over. Oh no. So she just makes, like, she makes this totally awesome, badass, like, acid world, and then she's like, oh, screw it, I don't need it anymore, and she deletes it, and then she makes an ice one. She's like, oh wait, shit, no, wait, let's bring them back to the ice world, to the acid world, and then just, like, keeps redoing them. I mean, it would be cool if she had, if that were the case, right? If she had the ability to just reform reality around her. But then there's that moment, hang on, isn't there a moment, like, right at the end of the fight? It's got to be in, like, 687 or something like that, where she's right before she gets sealed away. I guess it's a little further along. Yeah, so here's the expansive one. But then, yeah, so over here, doesn't she say, like, I'll go to the ice world, so that would be no good. So it looks like she's considering multiple different possible places that she could go to. So it's not like she, I don't really see how you would come to the conclusion that she's just constantly like creating and destroying them, unless you interpreted this very liberally. I don't know. It's amusing. Oh, hey, Howard Brema, nice to see you. How's everything going? I feel like I haven't seen you in a little bit. Is everything going well on your end? But yeah, thanks for stopping by. Let's see. Excuse me. Still have this fucking cough I can't seem to get rid of. Sorry, guys. H&H says, it just seems so incoherent to say she creates it every single time. Because why would that be the most effective use of her chakra? Is she physically incapable of moving it? Then why can she create it? Yeah. And I mean, also, Sasuke uses the Ameno Tejikara to jump between two of her dimensions, so the root time space is always there, and then at least one other one is maintained, so she at least keeps one alive to be able to use as a backup server or something like that, you know? So yeah, it's creative. I appreciate the creativity. Howard says, fine enough, and I'm relaxing. Oh, that's good. That's really, really good. I mean, especially on a Sunday night, assuming it's Sunday in your time zone, good that you have a chance to relax and kick back a little bit. Yeah, I'd be curious if you guys have played any games recently that you'd recommend. I tried to check out Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne through the recommendation of a friend, and I really love it. And it's got a lot of references to, like, I think Shinto and Japanese mythology, including the name Kagutsuchi comes up as, like, some sort of a spiritual entity in the game. I'm not far enough to know exactly what it is yet. But Magatama as well, you know, like Itachi has the ability, Yasuka's Magatama, and the Magatama are a presence in the game as well. I might not be able to keep up with it just because of the grinding is getting pretty monotonous, but yeah, the incorporation of those mythological elements kind of reminded me of how stuff like the Susanoo is taken from Japanese mythology. I think Shintoism, right? Like Amaterasu being the sun goddess, stuff like that. So Howard says, imagine creating a dimension where you, whenever you feel like it, and she's still afraid of two guys who can't do that like her. That's true. It is kind of funny that she has the ability to create dimensions and to slip between them at will, but she's being sealed away and doesn't seem to have the ability to like just get out of that space, right? Like the granted it's a six paths technique, but still the Chibaku Tensei that she gets sealed up in is just like a rock. It's a bunch of rocks, right? It's a bunch of rocks with a thing that sucks in the middle. Well, I'm probably oversimplifying it because like this is going on, right? And it's a six paths version of it, and the Sage of Six Paths obviously had the ability to shape creation around him, so it might be a little unfair. But still, yeah, it seems like she should be above simply being physically restrained by like rock masses, right? Okay. H&H says, I started getting into visual novels recently and started Subahibi. Am I saying that right? Man, it is fucked. Oh no, is that something like Steins Gate? Is it one of those like sort of interactive games that's mostly like text based? I was watching a stream of somebody playing that, and I can't couldn't get into it. So more power to you if you can. Egg Prophet says, for video games I'm always recommending Omori. Yes, oh my god, I love that game so much. I played it I think a couple of weeks after it came out, and yeah, I thought it was beautiful. It was the ending sequence was absolutely gorgeous and terrifying a little bit, and just like heartbreaking, but in a good way. Really, really highly recommend that. If you like Omori, you might also like Lisa the Painful. Very, very different vibe, of course, but it satisfies like a vaguely similar itch of, you know, a deeply emotional kind of RPG maker experience. But yeah, the wasn't Omori in development for like 5 years or something, and like seeing it finally come out after that was really, really cool. So good call there. H&H says, I love the video. I played Omori after losing my teenage daughter to suicide. Oh wow. I can't finish it because I want to play the game first, but the opening always makes me emotional. Yeah, it's like that if you know Umineko or The House in Fata Morgana. Ace Attorney too. Oh, okay, yeah, I think I see what you're saying. Cool. Well, I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think about it if you want to share. Not really my genre, but I do enjoy hearing people discuss it or having other people suffer through it for me, so I can just enjoy from a distance. But no, I'm joking. I hope it works out well. Cool. Okay. So, let me start by talking about my durability scaling idea, because I'd like to, especially, I don't know if Kakuzu God is here tonight, but if there are any Kakuzu stands who might be in the audience, let me know what you think of this. It might be a little, yeah, I guess I just won't speculate too much. Let me know what you think by the time we get through it. So, my goal here was trying to figure out if the Shinra Tensei that Pain uses could potentially damage Kakuzu. And my thinking was, okay, how do we determine what Kakuzu's upper limit of his durability is? Like, how much damage can he actually take? Granted, he's able to use Diamond Morph to defend against the Paper Bomb Kunai, Rider's Ebony Blade, and Choji's Spiked Human Juggernaut. But that's him using the Diamond Morph to harden his skin and essentially increase his durability beyond its base. So people talk about how, like, this feat from Kakashi, quote unquote, doesn't count because he's negating, as he's saying here, he has Lightning Style, and the Lightning Style is negating Earth Style of Kakuzu. And so this isn't really an anti-feat for Kakuzu because of that. But to my mind, Kakashi has to get through the Diamond Morph, and then he also has to get through Kakuzu's base durability, right? So if that's the case, then Kakuzu's base durability is not higher than the attack potency or attack power of Kakashi's Rakiri. So the Rakiri scales over Kakuzu's base in addition to Diamond Morph. Okay, but that's not necessarily a problem, as long as if the Rakiri just scales incredibly high, then that's not necessarily an anti-feat for Kakuzu, right? So what can we, how do we handle this fairly in a debate? Because the Rakiri doesn't have a lot of anti-feats. It, at least up until this point in the story, it pretty much defeats and is effective at most of the things that it attacks. But what I'd like to try to look at is this, right? So when Kakashi goes up against the Asura Path, Kakashi first shocks the Asura Path with his lightning clone. And while the Asura Path is shocked, it doesn't seem to take any damage. It could be taking internal damage. It could be, just being shocked in place. We don't really know to what extent it's being hurt by this. But then Choza comes in and punches from above alongside Choji. Now, this is something that I think you can contest in a debate, so feel free if you disagree with this. But it looks to me like Choza and Choji are using the same technique. It looks like the mass of each of their fists are relatively comparable to one another. They're father and son, so obviously they know each other's technique pretty well. And they're coming in and trying to do a synchronized attack on both of the Paths of Pain and land at the same exact time. So I think it's not proven necessarily, but I think it's reasonable to conclude that both of these things are hitting with the same amount of strength, and they're being, because we can probably assume that their speed is equivalent, given that, they are approaching and attacking simultaneously at the same time. Maybe Choji's is actually a little faster because it looks like his is kind of coming in at an angle, so maybe he's having to move further in the same amount of time. But it seems to me that they're pretty much relative. Now, that also means that Choza himself should be able to be at least durable enough to resist the counter force of himself punching into this rock here. So Choja's durability should also scale to at least this punch, if not maybe some other attack that he has. Okay, so with that being established, it definitely looks here like the Asura Path is capable of being damaged by Choza. And these attacks here aren't exactly creating holes in the planet, right? I'm not sure how high we would scale these attacks specifically, but would it be fair to say that these are below mountain level? Maybe even below, I don't know, skyscraper level? Is that a thing? How high exactly would we put these? City block level? Is that too low? Looking at the size of the crater, the amount of rock damaged, and the fact that the rocks aren't being pulverized, they're just being fragmented, which is at the lower end of the tier, right? Mountain level, if you go through the tiers, it's fragmentation is at the bottom, and then what is it, violent fragmentation is above that, then pulverization, and then vaporization is the highest sub tier. So this is just fragmenting the rocks. And then we see this going on to when Kakashi damages the Asura Path. So let's go down here. So Kakashi comes in, tries to damage the Deva Path, which we can put a pin in this. It's worth coming back to this later. But then Kakashi tries to attack the Deva Path, and the Asura Path comes in and tanks the hit. Now notice that the Asura Path's tail seems to be cut over here, and it already has some damage. We talked about this previously, right? Its arm had kind of popped out over here. It's missing an arm over here. So seems fair to say that the Asura Path was damaged previously to the point of including damaging his weapons. And now we see this. We see that Kakashi has managed to damage it enough to push his upper head and torso or whatever out and disrupt his internal mechanisms or something like that, but he doesn't get all the way through his chest. So he's capable of piercing him externally. He thinks maybe he can get all the way through him, but that one attack, although it scales to the Asura Path, it doesn't completely obliterate him or liquefy him or anything like that. So the Asura Path is probably, unless I'm missing something, probably Kakashi's best AP feat at this point in the series, but the Asura Path can also be damaged by Choza, the dad, Choza is relative to Choji in that they both create those small craters in the ground, and then Pain seems to be capable of making much larger craters, dealing much more damage. Pain is able to completely like KO Choza in one hit with the Shinra Tensei. And remember, Choza is durable enough to withstand his own blows, which hurt the Asura Path. So again, like Pain's AP is higher with these Shinra Tenseis than the durability of the Asura Path, and the Asura Path was capable of withstanding, although not totally tanking, the Rakiri. So if my little chain of logic there is correct, that would put the Shinra Tenseis, like the medium-sized Shinra Tensei that are being used in this fight, over Kakuzu's base durability. And if that's the case, knowing that Pain can make much, much larger Shinra Tensei later in the fight, including the one that destroyed the village, just to clarify, people sometimes call the massive one that destroys the village the chaotic Shinra Tensei and try to refer to it as a separate jutsu. I think that's a misconception. Pain himself just calls it the Almighty Push. It's just a more ramped up and powerful version of his basic jutsu. But keeping that in mind, that he can do a much more powerful one, and also that it seems like the Shinra Tensei has some ability to damage people internally, even if it doesn't appear to do so on the surface. And what I mean by that is, like, when he blows back all three of the big warrior toads, see if I can find that real quick, he manages to break all the bones in Gamabunta's body with one of those attacks, but we don't actually see, we don't actually see a whole lot of, like, scarring or wounding or bleeding or anything like that, or bones protruding from Gamabunta's exterior. The damage is all interior, because I think the damage is coming mostly from the rapid acceleration and deceleration, like G-forces and all that are coming from being slammed back by the shockwave and then slammed into whatever surface you wind up impacting. So, if you put that all together, Pain's massive Shinra Tensei should be able to do more damage than Choza's punch, and that means that and if he's doing that internally, right, if it can potentially just not like damage internal organs and stuff like that, then I think he should, like, definitively be able to damage Kakuzu with the Shinra Tensei. If Kakuzu has Diamond Morph on, then it's not like the Shinra Tensei is going to rip apart his skin or, like, shatter through the Diamond Morph or something like that. It won't. The Diamond Morph will probably still be intact. But at the end of the day, like, the force, like the G-force, the acceleration force, whatever it is that's actually enabling Pain to do his damage, will, should be able to kill or at least heavily damage Kakuzu. And he gets to use that attack, like, every 5 seconds, as long as it's not the massive one, right? So that's how I would try to look at this, trying to be fair, trying to just, like, establish some upper limits and create a chain, and not just be like, Diamond Morph blocks physical damage. So let me know what you think about all that. That was a bit of a ramble, but hopefully that made some sense. So H&H says, Pain over Choza over Asura Preth and AP is what I'm comprehending from the... Yeah, basically. In that, like... And again, like, Kakashi's Raikiri could actually scale way, way, way higher, potentially. But the best feat that we have for it is, I think, just pushing through the Asura Path. And it doesn't get all the way through the Asura Path as well. So it's not like a complete... it's not a vaporization feat, for example, right? It's just a penetration, like partial penetration. And so, yeah, if Choza is also capable of damaging that Asura Path, which he clearly is, then and Pain is capable of damaging Choza, then I think Pain's, like, Shinra Tensei should at least scale to Kakashi's Raikiri. Now, obviously, the delivery mechanism is different, and they're not, like, totally interchangeable the way that they work, but just in terms of, like, killing power, of damaging power, I think that feels fair. But let me know what you think. Dr. Pest says, I think that after seeing it, I realized that resistance is Pain's weak point. The passive Pain are not very resistant. Yeah, I mean, I could try to flip that and say, like, well, maybe Choza is just really, really strong, and so it's not an anti-feat. But honestly, if I use my own scaling there, and I use like the thing that I myself said about the size of the crater, then no, I don't think so. I think the durability of the paths is relatively low. It kind of depends on the context though, because we do have this example of like Sage Jiraiya kicking. Here, let's look at one thing. I agree with you. But just to be thorough, I want to show you one thing that you're probably already aware of. But here comes the human path dashing directly at Sage Jiraiya, and I think he just he kicks him right in the eyes, and then he blinds him. Right. So here he comes dashing at him, and then Jiraiya kicks him in the eyes, and with one hit, he just totally blinds him, right? He never uses his eyes the rest of the fight. We talked about that last time we were talking about, like, the Naraka path resurrecting things. But then over here, here's that same human path, and the human path is able to, respond to and just, like, no diff grab a punch from Sage Jiraiya and block it. So, granted, maybe that's not all that weird, because obviously you're fucking... your hand is going to be stronger than your eyeballs. But there's also bruising, like contusions or whatever, around the eyes as well. So that makes me think that maybe there's just like a little bit of inconsistency in terms of how strong the pains are. And you could look at how durable they are, rather. And you could look at things like this and say, actually, they are really durable if they're not being like caught off guard or something. But that being said, we would then, of course, need to scale like Sage Jiraiya's taijutsu for that to be relevant. I'm just presenting that to you because I think there are arguments you can make that they are durable, but also arguments that they're not particularly durable, and it kind of depends on the context. But yeah, during the fight against Sage Naruto and all that, they're kind of demonstrated to be not all that durable, and I don't know, like whatever Sage Naruto is doing with his like Senjutsu enhanced Rasengan, they're pretty powerful attacks. So it's it's like not all that weird that they'd be cut in half by the Senjutsu Rasen Shuriken or something like that. But there are other examples like this stuff with Choza and Choji of them just not really having much HP, so to speak, unless we were to say like, well, maybe that the lightning clone from Kakashi, maybe it was just extremely damaging, and it made the Asura path more vulnerable to start off with, in which case that would challenge my scaling before, right? Which is a possibility, but that the payload of chakra, right? So here's a potential counter argument. Again, none of this stuff is set in stone, just to kind of explore the potential like different angles here. So here comes Kakashi, and he said that since he had to use his lightning clone, he tells Choza later that he's at below 50% of his chakra. So granted, he gives 50% of his chakra to his lightning clone. The lightning clone then casts that lightning hound, however much chakra that costs. But then the remaining chakra, which, I don't know, a quarter of Kakashi's total chakra, is just dumped directly into the Asura path right here. And if we assume that lightning flowing through something is going to hurt it, even if it's not like the same kind of focused spear point lightning that the Rakiri does, then you could argue that the Asura path is weakened here, which is why Choza's punch does so much damage to it. In which case, that would cause my previous scaling to be in question, but would enhance the durability scaling for the Asura path. So hopefully some of that made sense. Dr. Pest then says, Shurido, which is the most physically resistant path, fell to a Shadow Clone version of Lightning and Fist of Akimichi. Yeah, I mean, when you when you write it out like that, it doesn't sound all that impressive, does it? Oh, hey, Kakuzu and Holidays. Hey, how's it going? How's your week been? Yeah, we were just, I just name dropped you a couple of minutes ago because I was like getting into some slightly edgy Kakuzu durability scaling. So I'm curious if you have thoughts on it. If you missed the last few minutes, basically the summary of it is that I was arguing that Kakuzu's base durability was defeated by the Rakiri. The Rakiri was able to puncture the Asura path but not completely destroy it. Choza was able to damage the Asura path as well, and Pain was able to defeat Choza. So by that scaling, and Choza can resist the counter force of his own punch. So basically, like, Kakashi can hurt, like Kakashi's best scaling I think is against the Asura Path, but the Asura Path is also damageable by Choza, and Choza's attacks are not particularly impressive, based on like the size of the crater that are being made here. It looks like Choza's is a little bit bigger than Choji's, but yeah. I was trying to create an avenue to say that like as long as Pain can output something that is as strong as a Raikiri, then he should be able to damage Kakuzu in base. And since I think that we can kind of get there via the Asura Path as like a common point, that was kind of what I was trying to say. Let's see. For me, the most overrated Pain is Ningendo because it is presumed that he has the ability to absorb souls, but he's very bad and slow, and that he is someone who is strong, surely with a lot of chakra, like that Kakuzu. Yeah. Well, he does have the ability to rip up people's souls, right? And he does go up against that was the one that we were just talking about that went up against Jiraiya. So it is a very strong ability, but we only ever see him really do that one technique. It's kind of one trick pony. Granted, the Ningendo was the ability that let Nagato pull KCM1 Naruto's soul out, like start to drain his life energy. Now, granted, just to be very, very clear, Naruto makes it very clear also that Nagato's jutsu at this point is way more powerful than when he splits up his paths into all six, right? But yeah, he calls out specifically Ningendo here, so arguably stronger when Nagato is using it himself than when he's like giving it to his subsidiary path or whatever you want to call it. Oh. Anyway, so let's see. Like that Kakuzu. Add to that for human path to work, it must touch the target, meaning it's a melee skill, which makes it perfect for counterattack, and hence why Nagato uses human path more as a human shield. Yeah, that makes sense. I think it needs to be used in combination with other things, right? Like here, Naruto gets pulled in, and then when he's incapacitated, or like, yeah, he gets pulled in by, excuse me, the Bansho Tenin. And then while he's getting pulled in, he then gets grabbed by the chameleon, is it? And immobilized. Oh, no. He's not actively getting pulled in here. That's earlier in the fight. So he just kind of jumps in, and then the chameleon grabs him. And then while he's being restrained, then Nagato uses that. What I think would be important to establish if you're arguing for Pain versus Kakuzu, for example, is can Pain just get himself into a position where Kakuzu is otherwise occupied with all of the other things that he's got to do, like if the dogs had split up and were chasing him, or if the Asura Path was like pelting him with missiles or something like that, can Pain create an opening to then pull him in and then like grab him like the Predapath does, and then rip his soul out while he's like inconvenienced like that, I guess I would say. Kakuzu and Holiday says playing Space Marine 2. Oh man, dude, I've wanted to check that out. I got a friend who has been into it. That and Helldivers. And he keeps trying to get me to co-op with him, but I haven't had time. But I do want to get into it. How are you liking it so far? Is it I've heard that it's really, really beautiful and has amazing art direction. It's super satisfying to play, but a little short in terms of like the replayability. Are you finding that it's something that you can kind of keep going back to, or are you kind of finding more that it's like a one and done thing? You play through it once and then you're done. Be curious to hear your thoughts. Kakuzu and Holidays then says Raikiri over Diamond Morph. Yes, over Kakuzu base. Yeah, Asura Path is different than any ninja since he's made of steel, non-organic, more like a robot. So him sustaining deadly precise blow doesn't surprise me. I'd say it's specific. Yeah, I think that's a fair take. I think what I was trying to look for is basically like a common ground thing, right? Like, so let's say that I say that like, well, Kakuzu got defeated by Kakashi's Raikiri, so that's an anti-feat for Kakuzu's durability. And you could respond and say, okay, well, how high does the Raikiri scale, and how is that even relevant to Pain? And then if I can't like give you an upper limit for how high the Raikiri scales, then you could just be like, okay, well, yeah, the Raikiri has no anti-feats, so it's not really I mean, obviously we don't want to do a no limits fallacy, right? But you could just say like the Raikiri has no anti-feats, and so you can't really demonstrate that it's an anti-feat for Kakuzu to be defeated by it. But if I can say like, okay, well, let's actually look for an anti-feat for the Raikiri. Let's see if we can find something that at least at least like overlaps with it, right? Is there another thing? Can the Raikiri get blocked by anything? And then if so, what other things can damage the thing that blocked the Raikiri? And then all of a sudden we start to have some anti-feats. We start to have a scaling chain that we can then use to try to tie back to Kakuzu's base durability. Another argument that I could make is just that like when Kakuzu, and I think we talked about this before, so you probably won't agree with me, and that's okay. But when Kakuzu like hardens his hand, you know, Hidan is like, hey Kakuzu, he's like checking in on him, and then he says, I hardened my arm, so I'm fine. And if we agree as a group that like Kakuzu is this experienced ninja that's been working as a bounty hunter for decades, and he's calculating and intelligent and resourceful, and he's, you know, been on all these missions and all that, and then like you go with the power of analysis statement in the third data book where it's saying that like he can quickly ascertain the strengths of his opponents and gauge their abilities and stuff like that, then I think it's probably fair to assume that Kakuzu is not just acting reflexively, especially when he, you know, makes hand signs to do Diamond Morph in some instances, that he's not just acting like on pure instinct or reflexes. He's making decisions to allocate chakra to use these particular attacks. So here, when Choji uses Spike Tube and Juggernaut, Kakuzu makes a deliberate decision to use Diamond Morph. The functionality of Diamond Morph is to defend against incoming damage, and this indicates that he thinks he could be damaged, at least to some extent, by Spike Tube and Juggernaut. And if you look at the environmental damage, Spike Tube and Juggernaut is like, you know, I haven't done the math. I'm not going to pretend that I've done the math here, but like if we were to say that this is city block level, multi-city block level, or something like that, then we could say, okay, Kakuzu is revealing to us that his base is probably not higher than whatever the AP of this thing is. Same thing for the paper bomb kunai on it. And then so if you start to put things together like that, then I think, you know, it's not like a like some grand revelation, I don't think, for me to suggest that Kakuzu's AP or durability is way higher when he has Diamond Morph activated, right? But if I were arguing for Pain, my goal would be to establish what his base durability is, because then if I can argue that the Shinra Tensei can like bypass durability or like external durability, or if I can argue that like Pain can turn off Diamond Morph by using the Predapath or something like that, then we get to the point where we're just talking about base durability versus Pain's AP, and I think I can argue that Pain's Shinra Tensei AP should be enough to hurt Kakuzu. But it's all like a little imprecise. It's basically just trying to do detective work on the clues that we have available. Dr. Pest said, well, it would be said that it's dangerous if it holds the enemy back from counterattacking, otherwise a human path alone is very useless. Yeah, I think its greatest strength is going to be when it's combined with the other 5 paths, and it's using like the shared field of vision to coordinate attacks, and then looking for an opportunity to swoop in and grab them by the head and all that. That makes sense. So Kakuzu says, we can't put helmet, it's sad playing alone instead of that, but it's very great. Can't put helmet? Oh, you mean like you can't communicate through a headset or something like that? Or you can't like change your character's helmet in the game? It's sad playing alone. Yeah, it seems like something that would be much better with a group of people. I'm not much of a multiplayer person myself for whatever reason. I just like playing solo, but that's one of those games that it does kind of feel like you want to get a platoon of people together and then roll out together. Kakuzu then says, not really anti-feat since it's a counter based on chakra nature, not AP. Yeah, if you're talking about the Raikiri, I would agree it's not a counter to, it's not an anti-feat for it against, whatchamacallit, Diamond Morph per se, because it has the elemental advantage, right? 1 second. Or it's a it's a jutsu clash anti-feat, but it's an anti-feat that's built into the very nature of the attack itself, and so it's not really fair to look at it as an anti-feat to the character overall, if that makes sense. I think that's what you're saying. I'm just trying to be precise. Not only AP. Yep. Oh yeah. I think I'm just kind of repeating what you're saying. Sorry. Then Kakuzu says, for the Choji argument, it's just that he doesn't know anything about Choji ambush, so by precaution, he used Diamond Morph. Versus Maratabi, he had already countered Biju, so he did know, therefore he didn't harden. Well, my interpretation of that was that Kakuzu looked at Yugito. You're not gonna like this, but that Kakuzu looked at Yugito's paw coming in, and was just like, okay, that thing is not strong enough for me to need to use Diamond Morph on it. And so he just decided not to. Or he used Diamond Morph like in his legs to kind of brace himself, because if you do like shoulder presses or anything, yes, you're using your shoulder muscles and your triceps and all that, but you're also like driving the force down into your like torso and into your legs and stuff. So I know it's pure speculation because we can't actually see it, but like it's possible that he had Diamond Morph active in his feet and he was just using that to brace himself against the blow. Either way, I am skeptical of those statements just because Maratabi himself, like, we don't have great scaling for his paw swipe, and as a result, or specifically I should say, the Yugito plus Maratabi feat in that fight specifically, we can't scale that specific thing elsewhere very effectively, to my finding. So I guess, again, it kind of comes down to if Kakuzu looks at a kunai with a paper bomb on it coming directly at him, like, he should know what those two things are. Like, those are standard ninja tools that have been, like here, he literally sees a paper bomb before. So even if he didn't before now, like, he knows what they are now. And so he sees a kunai with a paper bomb coming right at him, and he uses Diamond Morph in that situation. Reflexively, he's able to do so. But then in this situation where he sees Yugito, he has all this time to like see her like powering up and then raising her fist. I guess you could either argue that her paw was so fast that he didn't have time to like do the like to cognitively process it to be able to activate Diamond Morph, but he was able to raise his hands up to intercept it and block it, and he was able to do that with the paper bomb kunai as well. I guess you could just say, oh, well, Yugito's faster than a paper bomb kunai, which I wouldn't really find that to be too controversial. But again, if you then apply the logic that, well, Kakuzu is cold, calculating, he's intelligent, and he's like able to ascertain the threats that are coming at him, including being able to decide when to allocate his chakra, like to spend chakra on these jutsu, I think it would be an okay argument to say that he just didn't think Yugito was going to be that big of a threat with the paw strike, but he thought that an explosive projectile like coming directly at him that could pierce his skin potentially and then like blow a limb off, that might be a little bit more terrifying. But I don't know. Anyway, oh, there's no helmet in the game. Oh, I understand. Yeah, that's I'm really surprised. I figured that they would let you buy cosmetics or whatever to be able to customize your character, and the helmets would be a great opportunity for that. It kind of sucks. Even if he Diamond Morph his leg and not his arms, he loses his arms anyway. Yeah. Well, I'd like to think so, right? Because Yugito, I mean, she is a Biju after all, or a Jinchuriki after all in Biju mode. But so like, I don't think, just to be clear, like, I don't think your opinion is invalid or anything like that. But I'm trying to look for counter arguments that might be relevant for a debate. So I think we can totally agree to disagree on this. Oh, Egg Prophet. Yeah, no worries. I really appreciate you stopping by. Thanks for like listening to my rambling about Kakuzu for an hour straight. And hopefully you have a great night, great rest of your weekend, and start to your next week. Yeah, get some good rest. I'll talk to you soon. Dr. Pest then says, I'll have to ask Yugito if Kakuzu used diamond armor, although it would be difficult because she is busy watching Dragon Ball with Naruto. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of hard to get inside these characters' heads sometime, right, and know really what they're thinking. There's always a little bit of a margin for error in that regard. I think that I feel like I'm personally somewhat justified in my take, because we do have that databook statement specifically saying like power of analysis, and that you know, Yukito, or that Kakuzu is good at ascertaining the strengths of his enemies. It does say specifically for the purposes of then stealing their hearts, but to know whether or not their hearts are strong, he has to be able to like recognize whether their abilities are strong. And so it seems unlikely to me that Kakuzu would see a paper bomb coming at him and then choose to harden up, and then also say, I hardened my hands so I'm fine, and then that all to basically just be him like pranking Hidan. It seems more consistent that it would be in line with the other things that we know about his like analytical abilities. And unfortunately, that would lead to the consequence of Yukito just not scaling that high, which I know sounds really weird, because she's a Jinchuriki in a Biju who's mastered her Biju and all that. But I would challenge, and we can totally take a moment and go over this, but like I would challenge anybody to come up with like good, like a solid AP and DC values for Yukito's paw specifically, because the only other two instances I know of in the series where Yukito does an attack like that are her cat claws attack in V2 when she's in the like V2 Edo Jinchuriki fight, and then Maratabi when Yukito's dead and her soul's been released from the Edo Tensei. Maratabi himself swipes at Madara, and that doesn't seem to really, like, it's hard to tell if he does any damage to him there either. So oh sorry, like the cat claws attack is on KCM1 Naruto, and it's hard to tell if any damage is done there too. So it kind of sucks, but it might just be the case that this paw strike from Yukito, despite her being visually impressive and narratively implied to be very impressive, just doesn't really scale anywhere for like debate purposes anyway. But yeah, I'm curious what you guys think about that. Egg Prophet says, good night and remember to watch under your beds for long tongue freeze. Oh no, it's Orochimaru under my pillow. Or under my bed, rather. The fucker's always up to something. I feel like I've been consuming a lot of media that has like yokai or yokai related things in it now, so of course I'm thinking of those those blood lickers in fucking Bloodborne that like are just licking up the pools of blood and filth and stuff and come after you. Kakuzu Holidays then says, and there's a difference between piercing damage and shock damage and explosion damage. Yeah, that's true. I'd say base Kakuzu is very durable to shock trauma, but not piercing or explosion damage. Perhaps, yeah. Dr. Fest. Kakuzu and Holiday says, low Maratabi is weak, I guess, because of Kakuzu. Alright, that's weird. Yeah, I know. Well, here's the thing. Between you and me, like casually speaking, right? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for... or how can I say this? At the end of the day, like, Naruto is a story, and it's a story told through visual art and storytelling, and as it's not necessarily created with like laser mathematical precision, there can be inconsistencies, there can be weird things, there can be you know, things that don't immediately make sense or whatever, or seem out of order, and that's fine. That is actually totally okay. That's normal for any piece of art, right? When we try to apply a very strict, very rigid power scaling and debate perspective to it, and we're specifically searching for like these little discrete chunks of fact or of like empirical evidence that we can use to like argue with each other, basically, then it becomes harder, because sometimes those inconsistent things wind up, well, when you compare them, it winds up leading to weird conclusions or weird like inconsistent things. On the surface, it doesn't really make sense that this massive like intuitively, like, it seems weird, right, for Maratabi to basically be kind of feetless and not be shown doing a whole lot, like getting a whole lot of work done, because the Jinchuriki are some of the strongest characters in the world, and whether or not you believe Yukito is literally a perfect Jinchuriki, or whether or not you even accept that term, if we can even like remotely accept the third databook statement that she mastered her Jinchuriki, she should be one of the highest tier characters in the verse. Now, granted, like if you take all the Akatsuki and all the Jinchuriki together, and like a few other random ninja from Konoha, you could very quickly identify like 30 people who are probably stronger than 100,000 other people that are implied to be like part of the Shinobi Alliance or other nations or anything like that. So they're all, technically speaking, the strongest people in the world by a large margin. But also, you would kind of expect, I guess, Yugito to have more impressive showings. That being said, technically speaking, you know, Gaara and Shikaku, another Jinchuriki, were beaten by a 12-year-old kid. Gaara was also 12, I think, or, you know, around that age. Technically speaking, Isobu was basically destroyed by a small explosive to his head. Didn't kill him, but it knocked him out. So we do have instances of characters in this universe who scale really high or who are very like narratively implied to be very strong and scary, still managing to be defeated through some kind of counter. And remember, it's Hidan and Kakuzu going up against her together, and all they need is to get like a drop of blood. So I don't think that this is how the fight went down necessarily, but we can construct a version of the fight in our heads that kind of fits the narrative, right? Like, let's just say Yugito actually smashed Kakuzu so hard that it killed one of his hearts, and then he decided to play dead and hide another one of his hearts underground. And then Hidan as well, like, he let himself get hit by an attack and then played dead. And then she kind of walks over to him. Kakuzu then ambushes her, and then Hidan also comes in from the other side and then gets some blood. That's a version of the story that allows us to say, oh, there's Yugito being impressive because she hurt an Akatsuki member, and there's Hidan as well, like being temporarily taken out by her, but in the end, because of their hacks, because of their synergy and their weird abilities and their tactics together as a team, they were able to take her over. And I feel like that's probably what Kishimoto would have done, something like that, given us a back and forth. If he had actually shown us that entire fight, you know, he tends to kind of have fights escalate little by little, and very rarely does he have characters come out and do their strongest attack first. So he'd have maybe Yugito score a hit, maybe Kakuzu would lose a heart, Kakuzu would come back and like blast her apart and like wound Matatabi, and then she'd go back into V2 or something, you know, a little bit of back and forth. And there are definitely ways for us to reconcile all of this. It's just then when we, like fucking weirdos, we decide, no, we have to argue with each other about it live on Discord, and so we have to chop this up into these very specific, precise things, because otherwise we're going to get yelled at when we're trying to yell at each other. Then, you know, the nature of the conversation can just kind of change around that, I guess. Anyway, catching up on some comments from Dr. Pest. Oh, Kakuzu and Holidus says, to me, she did quite a lot. I think she is implied to do a lot off screen. You know, there's a lot more destruction to the environment. So the fight definitely like wasn't over in a blitz or anything like that. But it's just a shame. At the end of the day, it just sucks that we don't get to see more of what happened, right? I just want more information, more data. And also, like, I don't want to downplay your boy Kakuzu either, because he might have abilities that are capable of doing a lot of this destruction as well, with his, you know, pressure damage, or with I don't know, we don't even get to see him use all 5 elements in the manga, let alone I always forget like what the elements are. One second. So earth reinforces water. What reinforces? Oh, wind reinforces lightning? I thought wind reinforces fire. No, oh, fire is greater than wind, so wind reinforces. Oh, so earth reinforces lightning. No, earth is weak to lightning, so wind reinforces lightning. Is that right? Yeah, fire is weak to water, strong to wind. So lightning is weak to wind, strong to earth. Oh, I get it. I feel like I'm being stupid here. So wind... Yeah, it's like fire wind enhances fire, because it's like, okay, so earth would enhance lightning, I guess. So if Kakuzu could use an earth lightning ability, what would that be? Like some kind of a fucking lightning ballista or some shit like that? That'd be really cool. Like, we don't get to see him use his most like different combinations of jutsu that could potentially do like even more massive damage, right? Although I'm not sure. I guess like fire enhancing water would be like what, like a boil release or steam release or something like that. Anyway, it doesn't, that something about that doesn't make sense. I feel like I'm just like being stupid. What am I getting wrong here? This is wind, right? Wind enhances fire, so lightning enhances wind, so earth enhances. Oh no, the enhancements are going across like this. Oh, I see. It was just wasn't very clear on that particular graphic. Okay, so lightning is enhanced. That's what I thought. Yeah, so lightning is enhanced by water. Okay, so water. Fuck me. So water enhanced lightning. Yeah, it could create some like really, really cool shit. Anyway, enough of me like failing to read a basic child's diagram. Catch up on comments. My point was basically just to say that like the talking about like Yugito and Kakuzu winds up being like this delicate dance, because the more you hype up Yukito, the less emphasis you put on Kakuzu, and like vice versa, right? So well, I guess it depends on certain things, like the environmental destruction, right? Like if Kakuzu winds up being the person who does this damage, then that's a feat away from Yugito or something. So it's a bit of a balancing act, I guess. Okay, let me catch up on comments. Sorry. Dr. Pest says the scaling is really weird there, and for me, Maratabi isn't that weak. In fact, I'd say it's pretty strong for standard. Okay, I mean, it's hard for me to think of any of the Bijus being weak per se. So I think I agree with you there. It just winds up, I think, being whatchamacallit, being like an inconsistency in perspectives between like the casual reading narrative perspective versus the power scaling shit. Does it look to you guys like there's still debris falling here? I just noticed that now. Do you see that? There's like this stuff that's in the air. Is it like crumbling rock? Let me zoom in a little bit. Like the rock's like kind of still continuing to crumble down, and the steam or the smoke or whatever is still settling. Anyway. But well, what I can think of is that maybe Kakuzu used a combo of water release attacks with wind release attacks. He could have made a devastating combo. Yeah, that's that seems reasonable. Yeah. And I guess they undid Yukito's transformation into Maratabi, and from there she was more vulnerable to Hidan's attacks. Yep. I think we talked a couple weeks ago about whether or not like Maratabi technically has blood, which he might, but if you look at his like the way that he's depicted, right, he's like this roiling, like swirling mass of chakra. He's depicted in like a different art style, which I think is really cool. But I mean, like, okay, he's got a tongue and teeth, so it's possible that he does have a regular cat's anatomy under there, and that they could get blood. But also, it could just be that the way that his chakra is like projecting or manifesting or whatever, it's not the same. So they might find it hard to actually get blood from him when he's in this configuration. They might need to knock Yukito back down to a lower configuration, like you were saying, like undoing the transformation. Yeah. So Kakuzu in Holidays then says it's just at 100% Kakuzu is him versus Pichu, while versus Team 10 he isn't full at all. Not in character for Kakuzu, and Hidan to both play dead. I don't know. I think Kakuzu does play dead against Kakashi, right? Or you're saying that was out of character for him? Granted, it isn't for very long, but like he lies on the ground, and like I think. Maybe you disagree, but I think he waits for Kakashi to start running past him, and then like lashes out with his kick. I don't think he would have just necessarily. I mean, I think eventually he would have just gotten up on his own, like if Kakashi didn't notice him or whatever. They noticed me, senpai. But I also think that he clearly like exploits Kakashi's being distracted to his advantage, which is, I think, an intelligence feat for him. Right? Or like a tactical feat for him. So I don't know. I think it's possible that he would lie in wait. He did bury his heart under the ground and then have it pop out later to remove the kunai, to break the kunai. What am I missing here? Where is it? Oh yeah, like right here. Right. So I think he probably waits until Kakashi starts moving and then kicks him. Although it's tough to tell. Like, it does seem to also take him a couple of seconds to like reconfigure to get back together. Kakuzu in Holidays then says, I don't have Kakuzu in AP destroying mountain. I think this is a semantic disagreement we had last time as well, which is I That's totally fine. To me personally, I would not call these things mountains. These things in the back, maybe. It's kind of hard to tell how big they are, but at least for the purposes of a power scaling conversation, like we talked about before, mountains in according to like versus battles wiki are structures of a specific size. There's like an example mountain that you use. So when you say a character is like mountain level, it means that they are specifically capable of destroying a mountain of a specific size, not just any mountain, right? So I wouldn't call this a mountain. I certainly wouldn't call this a mountain that fits the versus battle wiki description of one. It doesn't look like it's big enough. Maybe the ones in the background. But if we're talking about like one of the characters blowing this away, do you think that? So here's the thing, right? Granted, somebody might challenge this calc. I'm just like trying to spitball here for the sake of conversation. If you look at this structure up here and you look at the size of those windows and you assume that they're the same size of the windows down here and that those windows are about the height of like an average human so that they would be like a 6 foot tall adult would be able to look out of them, and then you calc this at like six, like maybe this block here is like 20 feet tall and then this thing is 20 feet tall and maybe there's like 10 or 20 of these, so maybe this whole thing is like 200 feet tall, something like that. Obviously you should like fact check anything I just said, but if so, do you think that it's if we pretend this is 200 feet tall for a minute, do you still think that Kakuzu doesn't have the DC to be able to like blow out this chunk of it? It's not a rhetorical question. Like you might say yes or you might say no. It's totally fine. But I could see somebody making that argument that like if you treat this as a rock spire as opposed to a power scaling mountain, then you might be able to put Kakuzu at that level? Question mark. Let me know what you think. Kakuzu's main fight, says Kakuzu in Holidays, isn't full chakra greater than or equal to 2 Biju ceiling for a week plus 1 heart. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Right. I keep forgetting that he did like sit there for 6 days without eating, draining the chakra from was it Isobu or whatever. Before that, he almost defeated Isobu and Maratabi. Before that, he almost defeated anyone either off screen or in 1/2 page. Dr. Pest then says, from now looking closely at that destroyed mountain, that must have been 100% Maratabi. So here I see it even stranger that those two will survive Yukito and Maratabi. Interesting. Okay, so Dr. Pest seems to think that it is indeed Maratabi that did that destruction feat. So this thing over here. Cool. I'd be curious if you have more thoughts on why you would put it as Maratabi over Kakuzu. I could definitely see arguments for both, though. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying, Kakuzu in Holidays. He didn't play dead, he was dead. Have to change hearts. Are you saying he had a change of heart? Sorry. But, no, I mean, like, well, let me put you this way, right? Like, let's say he gets resurrected, and then his heart has turned back on, and now he's just sitting there with his heart active and ready to go. Do you think he would just get right back up immediately and be like, haha, fuck you, I'm not dead yet? Or do you think he would like lurk there for a second and see if Kakashi was gonna do something that he could maybe take advantage of? So I kind of like that second idea, right? Of Kakuzu just kind of like hiding down in the ground, being like, okay, if nothing happens in a couple seconds, then I'll get back up and get back to work. But I think this motherfucker is about to like rush at Hidan, seeing as like Hidan is immobilized at the time with the shadow possession, and then that gives Kakuzu an opportunity to get the drop on him, so to speak. But it could also be that his heart just like came right back online right as Kakashi was running past. It's kind of hard to tell. But Dr. Pest then says, but not to say, oh sorry about that. But not to say the easy and obvious one that the two of them beat Yukito by script. I say she in Biju form fired a Bijudama and thought it won, but then Kakuzu took advantage to attack. That could be. I mean, I think her Bijudama should be able, if her Bijudama is capable of doing the same sort of destruction that Killer Bees is, then she should be able to do this amount of damage and more. The only thing that's weird to me, I mean, it's hard to tell exactly like how far away these mountains are, but when Killer Bee uses his Bijudama, it blows back in such a wide area behind them, and I want to see if I can find that real quick. Forget what chapter it's in. It's probably... Is it before this? Is it like 4:30? No, of course not. That's the fucking paint fight. What's wrong with me? Alright, 1 second. I know we talked about this recently, but still. Matarasu. Okay. So it'll be before that. Kasaku. Is it after? Oh. Andanza. Oh. I think I'm out of order over here. 1 sec. I want to see if I can find it because it's a useful comparison. Before the 5 Kage Summit, right? Oh yeah, 4:14. It was before the paint fight. That's crazy. Okay. All right. So here's the thing, right? And I think you could use this as pretty strong indication that the like we talked about this before, right? It would this little rock spire over here, like mini mountain or whatever you want to call it, the way that it's being impacted by the Biju bomb over here. Look at the way that it's sort of being carved apart, and then look at the pattern of this being carved apart over here as well, and also the scorch marks that are kind of radiating outwards like this in this particular pattern. And then yeah, I could definitely see somebody looking at this and being like, this is Biju Dama damage, and then so is this. Probably Yukito's is smaller. Again, I'm just eyeballing it, but it looks like this structure here is probably smaller than this one. And this massive fucking explosion over here definitely seems to be big enough to knock out one of these mountains. But again, it's kind of hard to tell because of the distance between them, right? So, and then because of the cutting back away, the different scenes, we don't actually get to spend all that much time right there just watching the scene happen. Oh, okay, here we go. So... Well, no, the fucking camera's facing the wrong way. Damn it. Anyway, hopefully that gives you something interesting to look at. Kakuzu says Kakuzu in Holiday says multiple buildings are destroyed too. Yes, I agree. I don't see Kakuzu that cowardly since he's hot-tempered. It could be. I'd see him as being capable of pulling together an ambush, but if you disagree, that's totally fine. Yeah, he does, especially like the longer he goes into a fight, the more his lust for blood rises and the more he wants to just kind of cut to the chase, right? So I guess in the color version some rocks are falling from the mountain, meaning it was recent. Yep, that makes sense. Multiple buildings are destroyed as well. Always looks so weird. Well, I think that basically covers the intro section. So now we've gotten through the brief introduction to the video. Let me know if you have any other quick thoughts about any of that, or like things you want to go over. Otherwise, I'm gonna take a quick water break and then we can get into the video reaction. Oh yeah, Kakuzu Holidays. How's the video coming, by the way? Is everything going okay with that? Okay, so I think I'm good to continue for now. I'm going to jump back into the oh wait, hang on. Kakuzu Holiday says, and Kakuzu probably evaded since he had no scratch on him, perfect shape and not a sign of dust. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, oh, well, that's the other thing too, right? Like, if you want to argue, like, not you specifically, Kakuzu, but if somebody wants to argue that Kakuzu just straight up tanked a Bijuu Bomb, okay, to be direct, I'm pretty sure in the recent Noodles versus, was it Apollo debate that we talked about a week or two ago, he made the argument that fucking Kakuzu, yeah, okay, he made the argument that Kakuzu is quote unquote not a speedster, and I guess because he's not a speedster, that means that he's not capable of dodging a Bijuu Bomb coming at him from Yugito, and therefore, since Yugito definitely fired a Bijuu Bomb during that fight, that she must have fired it at him, and he's not fast enough to get out of the way, and therefore couldn't dodge it, and therefore he must have tanked it, right? Just like sat there and just like ate it up. But you just said he has not a scratch on him, in perfect shape, not a sign of dust. His clothing, his fit is literally immaculate. His drip is immaculate. There's nothing has phased him whatsoever. It's really hard for me to picture a fucking Bijuu Bomb just going off in his face and like him not like his Akatsuki robe not even getting like scratched by it. Although, hang on. Here we have some people who went up against a Bijuu Bomb. Let's see. Was it Suigetsu? Well, Suigetsu was inside the water chakra thing, so I don't know if that's fair. But, I mean, maybe these Akatsuki cloaks are really durable. I mean, oh, I'm looking right at them, and they don't look too damaged over here. Do they? They're pretty clean. They're pretty spotless. Man, maybe these cloaks are just OP. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, look at that shit. Okay, well, yeah, Sasuke like got turned into a fucking pincushion, and we're not even seeing any of that damage on the cloak. So I don't know. Is that meant to be an art inconsistency, or is that just those cloaks being incredibly durable? They do have some burning and some scarring. Okay, so there's more damage and more like visual. Yeah. Okay, when you get closer, there's more visual damage to them than we see on Kakuzu, so maybe. Yeah, to your point, Kakuzu and Holidays, I don't think just saying someone is not a speedster that counts as scaling. Wait, like, Human Pain's cloak was half destroyed by a Bijuu shockwave close quarter. That's true. Yep. And he should have the strongest cloak since he's the leader. So, I think we solved the case, boys. Okay, so with that being said, I think it's about time to go to the video reaction portion. And again, let me know if you want me to go back over any of that stuff, or if you have any other like questions or things you want to go over that's different. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed your comment about slowly for the bit. Yeah, I just want to like say I hope everything is going well, and that you'll stick with it. Keep working on it. I know it's a lot of work, especially given how like detailed and thorough your script was. But I'm sure you can do it. So I hope you keep up with it. Oh yeah. No, sorry, Kakuzu and Holidays. I didn't mean to put words in your mouth there. I know you didn't say it. For whatever reason, it was just such a weird statement to hear in that debate. That like you would start off by scaling your character by saying, my character is really slow and can't dodge attacks. So obviously that's a straw man. I'm exaggerating, but you know, you would start off by like the first argument that you would make would be, I'm just gonna focus entirely on the defense for my character, so I'm going to go out of my way to establish an upper limit for his speed and like downplay his speed to emphasize his durability. Hey, if that's honestly what Kakuzu is like, then kudos to him for being honest and straightforward about his character scaling. It was just kind of a weird vibe to me to start off that way. And yeah, like, especially when I think, was it during the Suikage debate, like years ago, there was this argument that he was relative to Shikamaru, and Shikamaru could blitz all the paths of pain, so I'm glad to see the arguments have evolved over the years, for sure. But yeah, I feel like why set yourself up with a nerf from the get-go if you don't have to? Kakuzu is fast enough for a caliber of a fast Biju and a Kakashi. Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. Okay, so I don't remember exactly where we left off, but I think it was somewhere around like this mark. Let me know, please, if I've already talked about some of the stuff. It's been a couple of weeks, so if you want me to skip ahead, let me know. But oh, the Shikamaru is easily debunkable. Yeah, let me know if you have a debunk for that. Be curious to hear that. But I'm basically going to start from here, and the first 5 minutes or so, I rewatched part of this earlier today. The first 5 minutes or so will probably go fast. I don't have all that much to say that we haven't already covered, but then we'll start to get into some more stuff later on that we can get into in more detail. I think the big thing I want to listen for is the mistake that I'm trying to address, or will want to talk about, is the idea that since somebody scales to one of the Biju, they therefore scale above all of the Biju, something like that. So let's just listen. Start off at the 11:36 mark and see where we go.
Argument that helps support Kakuzu being above Jinchuriki. In chapter 350 within the recap, it is stated that Kakuzu is one of the Akatsuki's deadliest members, which means
we
that
talked about this a little
would
before.
be in the top half of the Akatsuki in terms of killing ability. What's funny about this argument is that more than half, if not...
I like that animation. Let's watch that again.
Of killing ability.
Watch Kakuzu's feet here.
What's funny about this argument is that more than half,
Such a
if
great,
not
like,
all
twist
of the
around.
members of the Akatsuki have scaling to the Biju and Jinchuriki.
Okay, so I forget where in this video, but he also referenced this statement in the third data book that says that the Akatsuki members are hardened fighters, one and all, or something like that, and it describes them as being stronger even than Jinchuriki or something like that. So the way the third data book describes it, we'll probably see the scan show up in this video at some point. The way the third data book describes it, if you take it literally, the statement is that every single one of the Akatsuki members is stronger than quote-unquote Jinchuriki. And since it's vague, the temptation there is to interpret that as saying each one of them is stronger than every single Jinchuriki out there. Of course, all we need to do to challenge the statement is to start putting up the Jinchuriki or the Akatsuki members against like Killer B. So do we think that Kisame could beat Killer B? He literally did. Itachi? Yeah, absolutely. But what about Deidara? What about Hidan on his own? What about Kakuzu on his own? Sasori, Two-Tone Zetsu, and Pain. Well, Pain, yeah. But Konan, and is there somebody else that I'm forgetting? I think that's everybody. But basically, Orochimaru is going to talk about him as well. Like, do we think Orochimaru is, like, part 1, Orochimaru is just categorically able to beat a bloodlusted Killer B because he's a member of the Akatsuki? What about, like, Sasuke, right? Sasuke becomes a member of the Akatsuki, and he's got a whole little cell traveling with him, but he dies to Killer B effectively, like, twice. It has to get resurrected twice over the course of that fight. So, just factually speaking, being an Akatsuki member in and of itself doesn't mean that you just automatically beat every Biju and Jinchuriki. Now, being part of a two-man cell, that same databook statement, databook entry, has something to along the lines of like Pain believes that when the Akatsuki members are paired up in a duo, then they cannot lose even to Biju and Jinchuriki. So, I think the more fair and accurate interpretation of that statement is that Pain recruits people, maybe along with Obito recruits people, and he looks at their ability sets and says, okay, I'm going to pair these people up into two-man cells and then send them out. And then when he does that, he strongly believes that they are not going to lose to any Biju Jinchuriki that they come up against, right? And that does tend to be the case. They managed to get 7 out of the 9 Biju / Jinchuriki for a reason. He is good at setting up those matchups. That being said, like, Deidara manages to get Isobu with some assistance from Obito. Like, that fight might have gone differently if Obito hadn't been there as a distraction. but it only really took him like one attack to be able to subdue him. And so he can do that on his own. He took out Gaara on his own, although Gaara had to allocate a massive amount of chakra to protecting the village. So that fight might have gone differently if it was just a one-on-one, like outside in an empty field, like in Dragon Ball or whatever. And Datara did lose an arm, so it's possible that he might have lost, or that fight would have gone differently, or something like that. Especially if Gaara like went into full Shukaku mode and went on a full rampage. It's possible. But he does technically have feats of taking in 2 Biju and or Jinchuriki on his own effectively. And so, yeah, certainly some of them can. I think, like I said before, Kisame and Itachi could probably 1v1 and win any of the Biju and Jinchuriki. But does that mean that just because you wear the cloak, that means that like you can solo any Biju Jinchuriki combo? That doesn't seem to be the case. That doesn't seem to match up. I forget if I mentioned Konan, but that's another one to consider, right? So, if that's the case, if the databook statement doesn't match up with what we see in the series, and we know the databook statements can often be hyperbolic or just have the voice of an unreliable narrator, not be 100% accurate, then I think it's fair to say that we shouldn't just accept the databook statement at face value, and what we should do is we should look at every single matchup that we're going to talk about and evaluate whether or not it actually makes sense for the Akatsuki member in question to be winning that fight. So, for example, I could say that Kakuzu lost to a Jinchuriki because technically he lost to Naruto, but does that mean that he'll lose to all the other Jinchuriki? And obviously I don't think so. We could say that Naruto defeated Kakuzu, and Kakuzu's an Akatsuki member, but does the fact that he defeated Kakuzu mean that he can defeat literally anyone else? Like, could he actually beat a bloodlusted Konan even? He could probably beat Hidan, but I don't know, Datara on his own, if Datara keeps his distance at that point. I mean, like, specifically like around this arc, like pre-Pain arc. I don't know. It's debatable, right? So my whole thesis statement for this whole section is just be fair and precise with evaluating your matchups, and don't like make the mistake of assuming that this broad category statement just applies perfectly to everybody within it.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument...
Oh, 1 second. Sorry, Kakuzu and Holidays. Shikamaru more sensed a presence that seeing Kakuzu and so goes away. Oh, I see. Yeah. There's even a second meaning he did not react to speed attack, plus after that when Kakuzu chased him, Shikamaru falls in the ground because he can't keep up physically. Oh, okay. So like you think he basically like had a sixth sense or something, like, or like he heard the sound coming from behind him and he responded reactively to that, but he wouldn't be able to like keep pace with Kakuzu for a long period over the course of a fight. Am I understanding? Naruto won with assistance versus... Yeah, it's true. That's why I said technically, right? Like, if, well, I don't know. If Kakuzu... Okay, so... I'm trying to think here. If Naruto went up against... Okay, let me put it this way. Actually, it's a better way to put it. Naruto in part 1 is a Jinchuriki, like by definition, right? If the Naruto who fought Gaara, so like pre-Shippuden time skip, that same person who was like before the Sasuke retrieval arc and all that, right? Pre-Shippuden Naruto, pre-retrieval arc Naruto fights against Kakuzu, he will lose. Kakuzu will mop the floor with him, no question. Unless he goes into rage mode and somehow like breaks out into Eight Tails mode or something like that, but I don't think that's even possible. I don't think the seal is weak enough at that point for that to happen. So Naruto's just going to lose. But if Sage Mode Naruto goes up against Kakuzu, Sage Mode Naruto is a Jinchuriki. I don't think it would be crazy for us to agree that Sage Naruto with throwable expanding Senjutsu Rasen Shuriken and Sage Mode clones and shit like that, and Senjutsu Rasengan barrages and all that shit, that he would be able to win one-on-one against Kakuzu. I think that's probably fair, right? Maybe you think Kakuzu could counter it, but I think, especially if Kakuzu doesn't start off with his masks out and doesn't start off in that like Jianggu expanded state or whatever, the long range assault state. So the fact that a character is a Jinchuriki doesn't guarantee a victory of an Akatsuki member over them, because little baby Naruto and KCM2 Perfect Jinchuriki Naruto are both Jinchuriki, right? So my main thesis statement here is basically we need to evaluate each matchup individually and specifically and try to avoid like making broad category statements. That's all. Kakuzu says, even a short, once Shikamaru senses him, he dodged by instinct because he heard something, not because he didn't react to him since he didn't see him right after that. Shikamaru fires the page later. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I want to actually take a look at that. Do you remember? It's got to be in chapter like 325 or something, right? Somewhere around there. So, a little too far. But almost there. 322. Okay. So here we have some training from Naruto. Alright, so... Oh no, it was on the next page. Okay, so... Yeah. Oh, you know what? I think it's right here, right? When Kakuzu cracks his knuckles, that's what tips off Shikamaru. Probably if that hadn't happened, if Shikamaru hadn't heard this, he would have gotten him, right? Do you think, would you agree with that? Although technically speaking, like the briefcase is already really close to him, so Kakuzu had already gotten very close. Okay, so Kakuzu kind of like blows up the ground. He's chasing after Shikamaru. Shikamaru seems to be outpacing him here, like he's running away from him. And then Asuma jumps in, steps in. Do you think you're interpreting this as Shikamaru like falling down? To me, it kind of more looks like he's just sort of dashing backwards and sideways. I don't know if he hit the ground necessarily, but I could see that. Oh yeah, just because like the motion lines on him seem to indicate to me that he's going like this way as opposed to falling down that way. I think he's just sort of like crouch, like doing a Sekiro dodge kind of. But yeah, let me see. I said, to me, he tanks everything. Kakuzu. Oh, look behind Asuma. Oh, here when he's like slumped down? Oh, here. Yeah. Yeah, so he kind of goes back and then his armor's like extending out and he's going to like brace himself. I see what you mean. Then Asuma comes in and defends him. Yeah, that's fair. Okay. I think I had a different understanding of what you meant by like fell down or something. I thought he like fell off the building on his face. I was like, what? I don't remember that. But anyway. Yeah. Cool.
Hidan and Zetsu are not deadlier than Jinchuriki. That still leaves Sasori, who has the third Kazekage puppet in Iron Sand. The Iron Sand is actually stated to be the reason why the third Kazekage was feared as the strongest Kazekage.
I will point out how funny it is that Sakura just like punched the Iron Sand. Like it's this feared weapon that's like supposedly even more terrifying than fucking Shikaku himself, and like Sakura just smacks it.
This means that Sasori has a weapon that is stronger and deadlier than both Gaara and Rasa. Gaara being a Jinchuriki himself, and Rasa being someone who's capable of subduing the One-Tails.
Yeah, like Kakuzu just like walks up to the Iron Sand and just Diamond Morph punches a hole in that shit.
When we go on rampages. Gaara is also shown capable of blocking a C3 bomb from Datara, which at the time was said to be Datara's prize bomb that contained special C3 chakra. This C3 was so big that it was going to destroy the entire Sand Village.
Tiny nitpick there. Datara's intention was to destroy the village. It probably would have, but also, you know, if you're gonna then use that feat to like scale it to other things, just understand that not all of the Naruto villages are the same size.
And was said in the third data book on page 245 to be the highest level.
Although a simple type dropped from the sky in terms of explosive power alone, its explosion is at the highest level of scale and beauty. Yep. It is a clay bomb designed to the extreme with nothing extraneous. Datara takes pride in its dull design.
Level of scale and beauty.
Yeah, strategy versus Sasori hit hard. Yep.
This means that at the time it was dropped, the C3
if you try to hit hard and it doesn't work, try hitting harder again. It's so funny that like Sakura's strategy is I don't know, I don't remember exactly what chapter that was in, but on the one hand you have the Iron Sand just branching out into all of these like intricate patterns and everything, and then on the other hand you have Sakura just being like, yeah, actually fuck you, and just punching it. Is it? I don't remember where it is. One sec. Oh yeah, okay, so it's actually not, it's got to be somewhere around here. Yeah, I keep coming back to this. This is such an amazing, like, such an amazing panel, like such amazing artwork. It's like beautiful and intricate, and just think about the amount of time that it would have taken to sit there and actually draw this out. Like this is some berserk level intricacy on those details. Is it before or after she just like smacks it? Oh hey, Dr. Pest. Yeah, you didn't really miss much. We just kind of wrapped up talking about some of the Kakuzu scaling, and then I started reacting to the Noodles video. We haven't really gotten very far though. The main thing that I wanted to establish was just that there's this, I guess I'll call it a meme that kind of keeps coming up with some Kakuzu videos where people look at the third data book and there's a statement saying that the Jinchuriki are, or the Akatsuki members are hardened, skillful masters, stronger even than Jinchuriki, and as a result, like, the mistake, in my opinion, that gets made there is to then assume that that means every single Akatsuki member can beat every single Jinchuriki in a one-on-one. And I obviously, there's problems with that. Like, for that to be true, you would need to prove that, like, Hidan and Datara and Two-Tone Zetsu and Konan could all individually beat Killer Bee in a one-on-one, and I don't think that that's happening. So just the conclusion being to just be skeptical of databook statements. They're not to be taken as gospel just because they're in a thing called a databook. The narrator is not reliable. Yeah, this is so cool. I know I've said it before, but like I feel like this is Sakura's moment, like her peak, one of her peak moments in the series for sure, and the fact that the promise of where her character could go and grow from this standpoint was so huge and so exciting. And I think, like, personally, I think part of the reason why people are so disappointed with Sakura is in part due to the fact that she was sold to us as, or like promised to us as being, like, this was just the beginning of her potential. She was supposed to surpass Tsunade, and I guess she sort of did in some ways, but then, you know, by the end of the series, if you can imagine, if this scaling had, if this progression, this power creep had continued, then where would she have really ended up? And I don't think we got to really see her continuing to face opponents that were of that magnitude, really. But yeah, anyway, little tangent about Sasori. If you want to say that, like, Sasori's poison could take out Killer Bee, that he might be able to do so with an attack like this, I wouldn't necessarily think that that would be crazy. One of the other things to keep in mind, though, is that there's just so much we don't know about the other Biju and Jinchuriki. Like, how effective are poisons on Saiken, for example, or on Chome? Like, I don't know. Can Hidan manage to get his scythe through Chome's, like, bug carapace armor and get blood? Do bugs even really have blood? Don't look at this. Don't look at the screen. Bugs don't even have blood, okay? Bugs don't have blood. So what is he gonna do then, huh? Exactly. Kakuzan Holiday says, imagine her in Byakugo State and Sage Naruto versus Six Paths of Pain. Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that Kishimoto did a great job of, like, escalating Sasuke's powers and Naruto's powers, and then I think it felt like he kind of realized, oh shit, there's another member of Team 7. We just gotta, like, get her up to speed, like, really, really fast so she can participate in the end. And, like, he tried to bring it together, but, you know, this is not even me, like, being critical of him as an artist or anything like that. He's must have been under so much pressure. I know that I mentioned this before, but I want to bring it up again. I'll post it in chat one sec. Maybe I'll post it in the Discord too. So this video here, I highly recommend watching this. It goes into, it's by a YouTuber called Super Eyepatch Wolf. It's called the End of Naruto, a series of highs and lows, and among other things, it talks about here we go. It talks about the actual process that went into creating Naruto and just how much, like, how taxed Kishimoto was. Like, I guess he got married and then was crunching, like, working overtime for something like 20 years, and he only went on his honeymoon, like, after the series ended, essentially. Obviously the series has some major issues, and you could just say, quote unquote, there's no excuse for it or whatever, because it's not just Kishimoto, it's a whole production company. And I guess you could take that stance, but when you learn more about, like, what this motherfucker actually went through to make this comic exist and even get it as good as it is, it sounds like a nightmare. Like, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Just the constant, like, for 20 years you have to deliver an entire chapter every single week, and not only that, you have to be constantly thinking about, like, characters that'll be marketable, characters that'll be compelling from a narrative standpoint, and juggling those two things, how to keep all these different threads interesting, like juggling requests from your publishers and editors and stuff, and then trying to stay true to your own story. It's so much, and just to, like, never have a break from it, it's crazy. Anyway, kind of getting off topic, but that's it's worth learning about, I think. Kakuzu and Holiday says, why Kakuzu is the only villain who didn't have his fight fresh? Oh, yeah. Well, I guess technically speaking, Hidan also didn't. But Hidan's anatomy is weird anyway, so. You know, come to think of it, Naruto usually shows up partially fatigued to hit some of his big fights, too. Kakuzu says, what's your thought for the Naruto scaling, well done or not? Oh, do you mean, like, how Naruto's, like, power progresses over the course of the series? I felt like you heard me say this before. I know it's kind of an edgy thing, but I feel like if the most powerful ability that we ever saw in the series was like Kimimaru's bone jutsu or something like that, or, you know, Shukaku's air bullets, like, if it never got any higher than that, I would have been really happy. I didn't need the whole, like, giant Biju, like, smashing each other and firing, like, Madara cutting down mountains and stuff, and Hidan's main fight was fresh and Sage Naruto was fresh. I thought Sage Naruto was coming from training, but the Sage mode kind of restores your stamina anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter. You can say that he was fresh, that's totally fine. But yeah, I think Naruto's, like, befriending Kurama, and his whole, like, arc as a person of learning to kind of confront the hatred both inside him and outside of him is in and of itself super compelling. And so I think the fact that his final source of power came from, like, consolidating the different parts of himself and reconciling that, I think that's very powerful. I think him becoming achieving, like, the level of power that Kurama had when he attacked the village at the beginning of the series would have been, like, understandable, considering that Naruto was already, like, tangoing with a big fucking monster in the form of Shukaku in part 1. So the series had already, you know, kind of established itself as being able to scale to things that could potentially break apart mountains and shit. But I don't know, like, him just being able to generate so much power and chakra and energy that he was giving a buff to every single fucking person in the entire Shinobi Alliance, and, like, having them heal from their wounds, and I don't know, he just kind of became this weird Deus Ex Machina, like, ass pull thing that was going around fixing problems with the plot or whatever, and just trying to get everything like, righted, or what's the term for it, yeah, like putting the ship back on course. The fact that he was fighting 7 battles or 5 or 6 battles simultaneously with his ACM1 clones was kind of silly. Like, he had to save everybody, he had to, like, mop up everybody's homework, you know, unfinished homework assignments and stuff. Like, the fight with Obito and the fight with like Jubito and Madara, like those were all fine, even though they were using like pretty big scaling attacks with like pretty massive like radii or whatever. Like Sasuke's Amaterasu plus the Rasen Shuriken was obviously like a huge fucking attack, but still it felt okay to me because it was within well-defined constraints of that particular battle, and it was like, okay, this is the scaling of this particular battle, that's fine, you know. Here's the challenge presented. Naruto has an amount of power that scales to the challenge but not super high above it, and so he has to actually work hard and find a solution to the problem. That's, at the end of the day, that's what really matters, right? Is like when the fights are decided, are they decided by characters actually having to struggle and strive and like come up with some new tactic or technique, or like face something that's like really challenging or terrifying, and then all of the like kicking and punching and shouting and shit is just like an extension of that conflict. And at the end, yeah, Naruto was Jesus. At the end, like Naruto literally saying, "I will be the savior because my you know, God don't make no trash," basically. You know, like my mom didn't make any mistakes, my mom and dad, and so just going around like saving everybody is a bit much, because you know what? He already did that. He already did that during the pain fight. He was already the savior of Konoha. He didn't need to then be the savior of the entire fucking shinobi world. In fact, I don't know. It kind of, I think, pulls the spotlight away from the other Kage and all that. Kind of makes them all look a little incompetent by comparison. Which I guess is a theme in, oh damn it. I guess it's a theme in Boruto as well. That like, what's the term that people use? Bum Kage. That like, the leaf is just so much stronger and superior to all the other villages in Hokage at that point. But yeah, I don't know. This is everything Naruto needed right here. Was just whenever I actually find it, was just to save the village, to have people acknowledge him, and to confront like an existential threat to the village and convince everybody that there was a better way, and he accomplished that. So at this point, this is the end of Naruto's character arc in a way, right? Like the only other big thing that he needs to do is he needs to like try to save Sasuke from the darkness. That's the other thing. But this is what we established in chapter 1. This is what Naruto's always wanted his whole life. And he achieved sage mode, and he like stepped into the shoes of his mentor and surpassed his other mentor Kakashi in order to accomplish it. So really, all he has to do now is just like reconcile with Sasuke. And I don't know. I don't think we need all of the fucking dozen levels of powering up that comes between now and then to have that happen. Anyway, I hope that didn't sound too negative. I'm not trying to be. I enjoy parts of the war arc, but also, yeah. If the series had ended here, actually, if the series had gone on for like, there was like a brief time skip of about a month, and then there was 30 more chapters where Naruto found Obito and Sasuke and like resolved things with them, and the series ended at chapter 500, I don't think anybody would have said that they were cheated or that there was too much unresolved or anything like that. I don't think anybody would have felt disappointed by the lack of the war arc. Yeah, there's cool shit in it, like getting able to see characters like Kimimaru again and all that, and the Edo fights, but also like, yeah. Anyway.
Vader's biggest and strongest bomb yet. Gaara was able to completely block it, only losing to the tiny bombs that Vader hid within some sand that was returning to Gaara's sand shield. The reason this is
well, it was that, but then it was also the little microscopic bug things that were coming in, so he's missing a couple details, but basically, yes.
Impressive is because Vader was unironically capable of one-shotting the Three Tails Bijuu with some random fish bomb.
I object to calling it a random fish bomb. Datara has a jutsu, which was just shown on screen a moment ago, called the clay bomb jutsu.
Village.
1 second.
Was said in the third data book on page 2.
Yeah, so the fish and the whatever, it's actually on the other page. It's on 244. It's not shown here, but yeah, Datara's Clay Bomb Jutsu is specifically a jutsu that lets him sculpt and mold clay into a variety of different shapes and forms with different properties specific to given contexts. And so he didn't just have a random fish. He didn't just like randomly have a fucking fish in his pocket. He specifically makes the clay bomb into the shape of a fish because it's useful for this particular encounter, the same way that he makes the bird in this encounter with Gaara. So I don't know, I think it's much better to just be precise and say Datara, this is a feat for Datara's clay bomb jutsu.
The reason this is impressive is because Datara was unironically capable of one-shotting the Three Tails Bijuu with some random fish bomb. This means
Some
that
random
Datara's
fish
bombs
bomb,
are
my
stronger
ass.
than the Three Tails, and Datara's strongest bomb at the time, C3, is stronger than the fish bomb that blew up the Three Tails. Kasame is literally stated to be as powerful as
That man possesses Jinchuriki level chakra volume and Samehada the most terrible of the 7 blades. My elders told me that when he fuses with the sword, he becomes like a Bijuu, putting out Jinchuriki-like power. Okay, so yes, I basically agree with what he's saying, but again, like, it's important to read all the words, and it's important to make sure you get the full context. It's Kisame plus Samehada gets to like approximately Jinchuriki levels of output. But again, what does that even mean, right? Like, does that mean that he has at least as much chakra as the lowest level, like the lowest tier Jinchuriki? He just satisfies whatever the requirements are to make it into Jinchuriki tier. What does that actually mean about his scaling for the purposes of a debate?
Jinchuriki. Itachi has tons of things that scale him above Bijuu and Jinchuriki, but one of the obvious ones is his Amaterasu, which is said to be the strongest offensive ninjutsu by...
Okay, I'm not gonna... Fuck. I will say that, like, Killer B was able to deal with the Amaterasu, so I don't think it's an instant win. Obviously, it requires you to be resourceful and to know how to deal with it or come up with a strategy on the fly. But I can get into this if y'all want me to, but I kind of talked about this in the long video that I did last year, and the clear implication here is that Zetsu is talking about the Amaterasu being the strongest ability that Itachi has in the context of this fight. You know, if you read what he actually says, if the left eye's Mangekyo possesses the most powerful Genjutsu, then the right, or not even then, the right eye's Mangekyo possesses the most powerful physical attack. So it's an if-then statement. If this thing over here is the strongest of this category, then this thing over there is the strongest of that category. This is not saying that Black Zetsu is saying that the Amaterasu is the strongest physical attack in the entire Naruto universe. If he did actually say that, that would just undermine his credibility, because there's extensive evidence that is absolutely not the case. There's so much more shit that's just like stronger than the Amaterasu. And basically, he also hasn't, I don't think he's seen the Amaterasu at that point in the series yet either. At least he's pretending not to, because there's another statement that we have from him where he's like, no, I want to go watch this fight, maybe we'll get to see the Amaterasu, right? He's excited about seeing it, and he's talking about the reputation that the Amaterasu itself as a jutsu has gleaned over the years. So the legend of the Amaterasu is that the right eye of a Mangekyo user has the strongest physical attack, but not in the entire verse. I do appreciate the editor here pointing out that the speech that Zetsu uses is, this is coming from Black Zetsu, and you can tell by the way that the text is formatted. So kudos to whoever noticed that.
Black Zetsu, a character who has literally witnessed every fight with the Jinchuriki and the Akatsuki up to this point.
I think that's right, but I would have appreciated some more evidence for that.
And we see Sasuke also literally Amaterasu both the full Avatar Killer B and the Lightning Cloak Raikage.
I object to the use of this term "fool avatar." It's not the Last Airbender. I don't know what a fool avatar is supposed to be, but it's just perfect possession mode is what what's his face Gawabunta calls it in part 1, or Bijuu mode or Bijuu transformation. I don't know where this term avatar is coming from, and it kind of seems to exclude the nature of the ability as being a transformation into a Biju. Like, you're not just manifesting an avatar of the Biju. Maybe there's some more nuance to it. Maybe there's something I'm missing. I'm not sure, but it just struck me as a bit weird.
The Lightning Cloak Raikage is both stated to have Biju levels of chakra.
Where is that?
And is shown capable of cutting through the Eight Tails horn.
Okay, maybe he has Biju levels of chakra, but again, where's that statement? And where's the statement that he has Biju levels of chakra? And where, which Biju are we talking about, right? Like, again, keep in mind that this is all meant to provide context to a Kakuzu versus Pain discussion. So far, all we're doing right now is we're just going over how all the Akatsuki members supposedly have the ability to take on Biju. That's fine. Kakuzu can have that ability, and then Pain can have that ability too. So, with that being said, how does Sasuke, having the ability to cast an Amaterasu on somebody who has... Oh, I see. Actually, I'm looking right at it. What the fuck? Karin says that Raikage's chakra is so high right now, he's at Biju level. Okay, so there's the proof of that. I appreciate that. Just missed that when I was looking at it before. Yeah, so how is that connecting us back to Kakuzu, though? So Sasuke can use Amaterasu on the Raikage. The Raikage has Biju levels of chakra, and Kakuzu can defeat Biju, so Kakuzu over the Raikage or something? I'm not quite seeing how it's connecting, but maybe I'm jumping the gun. We'll see.
Biju levels of chakra and is shown capable of cutting through the Eight Tails horn. The same horn that could withstand its own Biju bomb.
Well, this is not just the Eight Tails, right? This is Killer Bee and the Eight Tails after they've been with each other for an extended period of time, and Killer Bee has also like been training the Biju bomb specifically for a long period of time. Also, that horn this is so pedantic, but I'm going somewhere with this. That horn actually didn't withstand the Biju bomb because that horn was gone because it got chopped off. So I know that's petty, but yeah, like the horn here is not what is absorbing the brunt of the blow. It's like going into Killer Bee's or into Gyuki's chest, and then he's like exploding. It's exploding from there. It's not. This is like basically an AP versus DC feat as well, because the Raikage used a highly like concentrated bolt of lightning essentially to slice through the horn, whereas this is a large-scale explosive that's being delivered directly into like Yuki's chest. It's DC versus AP. These are two very different forms of Gyuki, so they can't be used interchangeably like that.
Obito has fire style that completely withstand a punch from the full Avatar Bee, and a Kamui Shuriken which can cut through the Eight Tails.
Okay, so this is, again, like we talked about this before, these are not Kamui Shuriken. These are Shuriken. Obito pulled the Shuriken out of the Kamui dimension and then threw them. But the Kamui Shuriken is specifically the ability that Kakashi uses when he gets the dual Mangekyo Sharingan later in the war. These are just regular metal ass Shuriken, which actually helps his point more, I guess, because it's saying that Killer Bee's tails are just capable of being cut by metal. That being said, also, if you look carefully at what's happening here, the Shuriken here are being caught by Killer Bee. It looks like they're going through his tails because it looks like it's like interrupting the flow of his tail, so to speak. But if you actually look, the tail itself is not like falling off or anything or getting like detached. And the you get the thwop sound effect and then the spinning around with these motion lines going around in a circle, indicating that Killer Bee has stuck his tails through the center of the Shuriken and has caught them. And then there's one of them, like he manages to catch a bunch of them, and then there's one more that winds up kind of going past and cutting through one of the tails, which, I mean, it doesn't disprove what he's saying. Like, they can absolutely cut through his tails, but we're also just kind of glossing over some details here.
All of these Akatsuki members are just outright stated to be stronger than Biju and will not lose to Jinchuriki either, and Kakuzu is one of the deadliest members, making him even deadlier than people who can quite literally beat and kill Biju.
So that's a really weird phrasing, right? Like, all of the, again, like the purpose of this section of this video is to demonstrate that Kakuzu is stronger than Pain. So all of the Akatsuki members can go up against Biju and Jinchuriki and will literally not lose to them. Except, and I know it's a technicality, right? But Naruto did technically lose, Kakuzu did technically lose to Naruto, who is a Jinchuriki. And when you think about, Pain also did, well, it's technically right, because Pain beat Naruto, but then Naruto also beat Pain. There was like a back and forth there. So the phrasing of, or I guess a better way to kind of address this is, again, go through all of the instances in your head of characters losing, like Akatsuki members losing fights to people. Deidara loses a fight against Sasuke. Now, granted, Sasuke has an advantage against him with his lightning style, but Sasuke, a stronger version of Sasuke, arguably later on, also loses to Killer Bee, so Killer Bee would scale above Deidara. So Deidara is not going to win against Killer Bee just because he's an Akatsuki member and just because he's defeated Biju and Jinchuriki before. Like, Killer Bee is just going to, like, destroy him, right? Is there any way, except maybe with C4, that Deidara could potentially win? It's a possibility, but he would have to manage to do so before, like, Killer Bee got to him and, like, tore him apart with his lightning style and stuff like that. So similarly, like, put what's his name, Sasori. Yeah, so Sasori lost to Chiyo and Sakura. Granted, what's her name, Chiyo had prior knowledge of his techniques and stuff, and he, well, I don't know, I'm kind of talking myself out of it now, because he did allow himself to die in the end. So we have this. So we have Deidara, who's specifically weak to lightning, and could potentially do something with his with the. I have to think about it. Yeah. Okay. So I think I could actually see an argument that Deidara could kill Killer Bee, now that I think of it, because if he's able to get his, C0 off, whatever it is that he has, the microscopic bombs, he has a chance of killing Killer Bee with those, right? Because the reason why Sasuke was able to survive them is that he detected them with his Sharingan, and then he ran lightning chakra through his body. So it's possible that Bee would disable them by running lightning chakra through his body as well, but Sasuke specifically uses the Chidori stream, I believe, and, like, partially damages himself in the process. I don't know if Killer Bee's attack would, or his lightning style would do the same thing. So you could potentially argue, actually, that Deidara could stand a chance against Killer Bee with that particular jutsu. But I think it's also fair to say that given Killer Bee's lightning style, and given his ability to, use Biju bombs and everything, that it wouldn't necessarily be like a one and done thing. Like, Killer Bee could also win against Deidara. Does that seem fair? And then same thing when we start to talk about people like Hidan or whatnot. I was trying to go through the other Akatsuki members in my head, and I was trying to say, like, okay, well, Sasori lost to Chiyo and Sakura, and as long as they together don't scale above all the Biju and Jinchuriki, then there's another point. But, like, Orochimaru, right? Orochimaru lost to Part 1 Hiruzen, but then again, like, does that mean that Part 1 Hiruzen, like, old Hiruzen, scales above Killer Bee in Part 2? So I'm looking for ways at which we could possibly investigate those things further, but I'm going to cut myself off because I feel like I want to do more research and actually see how those matchups go. Really, though, all we really need to do to demonstrate the problem with this is just, like, say Hidan versus Killer Bee. I know that's a little facetious, I guess, but it's also probably not going to go his way. Although technically, if Hidan does get the blood, then he could potentially do it. So, okay, okay. The way for me to be the most fair about this, to both sides, like my own opinion, but also to what Noodles is trying to say, is that each of the Akatsuki members has some ability that, under the right circumstances, in the right conditions, if used correctly, could potentially beat all of the Biju and Jinchuriki, depending on the situation. But there are also ways in which those Biju and Jinchuriki could absolutely beat them, and depending on the nature of the matchup, it's really not fair to say that any of those things are guaranteed, particularly when there's several just Biju Jinchuriki combos that we don't really know all that much about, and so it's not safe to say that they would just automatically have unfavorable matchups based on what limited knowledge that we have towards them. And then on the other hand, we have examples of characters like Killer Bee versus Hidan. Yeah, maybe Hidan could get the blood, but then could he get the blood and then also like make his ritual thing on the floor and then maintain his position in that spot while Killer Bee like does his acrobat mode at him, lightning enhanced blades and shit like that, knowing that Hidan's head and limbs can be severed with explosives and with chakra enhanced weapons like Asuma cuts his head off with. So I don't think it's a guarantee. And more to the point, this phrasing, more to the point about Kakuzu versus Pain, this phrasing is weird because he's saying that all of the members of the Akatsuki, including Pain, are capable of defeating Biju and Jinchuriki, and Kakuzu is one of the strongest members of the Akatsuki. Therefore, Kakuzu, somebody who can defeat Biju and Jinchuriki, is stronger than people who can defeat Biju and Jinchuriki. So Kakuzu is stronger than the category he himself is a part of. It's just a really weird way of phrasing things. Dr. Pest, sorry I missed your post there. From there, Gyuki caught them easily until Obito used some stakes with curse marks that limited Gyuki. Yes, exactly. And then he just like barely doesn't catch the last one, right?
To highlight some of Kakuzu's hacks and abilities, he mastered all 5 chakra natures and can use them at high levels.
No, that's not true. Kakuzu himself, or at least it's not clear that that's the case. Kakuzu himself didn't master 5 chakra natures. He specifically needed to steal 5 different people's hearts with different chakra natures to be able to use them. If he had mastered them himself, then he wouldn't need to steal those different hearts. It also seems like he's using the sign of the ram when he tells the hearts to perform certain attacks, which we talked about in a previous stream as being something that is consistently used to give to give commands to things remotely. So let's see if we can see. Yeah. So no, it's a different seal. Let's see here. So this here is fine. No, it is the sign of the ram, right? Yeah, we talked about whether it was rat or ram, but if... Come on, why does it always do this? Okay, so this is ram, and... Yeah, okay, so it is the sign of the ram. So basically what he's doing is he's issuing commands in a similar way to the way that, like, Hidan issues commands to his bombs, and when he issues a command to the hearts then perform the jutsu. Now that doesn't mean that he's doing the same thing over here. He's not doing like a fire jutsu hand seal. He's not doing a lightning style hand seal up there either. He does an earth style hand seal when he uses earth himself, but when he has the masks cast these different abilities, he uses specifically the same like sign of the ram to get them to cast their abilities. So it's possible that Kakuzu also has other nature releases that he can use himself, but the suggestion that he mastered all 5 elements himself, like if he lost all of his hearts, that he'd just be able to still use all 5 elements himself without the hearts, like Nagato does when he's training with Jiraiya, I don't see any evidence to that effect. I think the whole point is that he needs to get more hearts so that A, they can he uses them as one-ups, so to speak, but also B, like the benefit of having them is that he has access to different natures that he wouldn't have normally. Kakuzu Holiday says in order to create jutsu with elements, he doesn't have a very good chakra control plus mastery over the chakra nature. He doesn't use any mudra for the lightning heart. Didn't he just do the mudra for... Didn't we just see that, or was that just for the fire attack? Let's see. We don't see him do it every single time. So it could be that the hearts are also doing that autonomously, right? Like, basically... So yeah, this is the wind style pressure damage. So he does this, and then it's not like he does this and then the heart immediately fires. So I think he's just giving it a command in the same way that you would give a command to an Edo Tensei or to a like to one of Datara's bombs or whatever, right? He's just saying, okay, you go attack, right? And then it goes and does that. So we don't see him actually use the mudra here, but it does cut away. And oh no, you know what? It does look like he's not he doesn't have his arms raised. So I guess maybe we should interpret that as he gives that command to the hearts, and then, yeah, I mean, that's just more evidence, right, that the hearts themselves are the ones that are actually performing the jutsu. So Kakuzu is not like using the heart to then himself weave the hand signs for lightning style, and then he himself casts lightning style through the mouth of the heart. He commands the heart has access to this lightning style ability, and then it launches the ability. Maybe if they're all inside his body at the same time, then he can use the hearts to do it, but we just don't really see that in character. And if he were walking around with only one heart, I don't think he'd be able to use all 5 nature transformations, is what I'm saying. So it's just a subtle difference, but there's a difference between like acquiring all nature transformations and mastering them all. At least not shown only fire, but the hearts can attack even without mudra. The hearts are also autonomous. Yeah. I think you mentioned that before, yeah, and I would agree with that. Okay.
He can even combine them to make even more powerful jutsu, so strong that he overpowered Kakashi's water style with wind.
It's not really accurate to say that. I think we talked about this in like the first ever stream that I did, that like if you look closely here, Kakashi is able to match the water wall. It looks like maybe, like, depending on how you interpret it, you could say that maybe Kakashi's actually pushing it back a little bit, or depending on the angle that Kakashi's pushing it forward a little bit. But it seems most fair to just say that that's a stalemate. They're both clashing in the center, and then that clash is leading to the creation of steam, which is coming upward. It doesn't really seem like either is pushing the other back.
Enhanced fire jutsu. He was also able to cancel out 2 Rakiri, which is Kakashi's strongest attack.
Again, like, I don't like that phrasing. I don't think that's accurate. Saying that Kakuzu canceled out 2 of Kakashi's Rakiri, is misleading, because that makes it sound like Kakashi is using 2 Rakiri on Kakuzu, and Kakuzu is blocking the 2 Rakiri. And in order to block something, you just need to be as strong as the thing you're blocking, but you could also be way stronger, right? So if Kakashi blocks, or if Kakuzu blocks a Raikiri, and Kakuzu has a defense value of 100 and the Raikiri has an attack power of 50, right? Kakuzu is going to block it. But if Kakuzu has a defense value of 10 billion, he's still going to block it, right? So phrasing it this way makes it seem like leaves the door open for the scaling for Kakuzu to just be indefinitely higher than 2 Raikiri, as opposed to being equivalent to it. And I don't think that's... it's just like factually not true. Like, what happened on panel was that Kakuzu shot the false darkness at Kakashi, and then Kakashi blocked them. Now you can still try to scale like the false darkness to 2 Raikiri based off of what happened. So why be misleading about the way you're describing the things happening? That you don't need to do that in order to kind of make your point. Kakuzu says, I think he tried to say he mastered all 5 chakra nature because the hearts are part of him. It's possible. I didn't get that impression, but I could definitely see that interpretation. But anyway, the hearts are linked to his chakra network, so he isn't wrong. No, I disagree. Just because, again, like, the process of learning to use a chakra nature yourself, being able to use multiple as an advanced Jonin is definitely something that is fairly common. But when Nagato is training with Jiraiya and he learns to do all 5, like just like that, Jiraiya is describing that as part of the reason why he thinks he's like the child of prophecy. Being able to use all 5 natures is incredibly rare and very difficult within the Naruto universe. And there is a difference between like being able to remote control something that can spew out different nature elements and being able to spew out those elements yourself. Because again, like think about it this way: if Kakuzu were to lose like 3 of his hearts in a fight and beef, like let's say you and I were debating Kakuzu versus Pain, you were debating Kakuzu and I was debating Pain, right? Or taking the stance of Pain, and I somehow in my argument managed to convince you that Pain could take out 3 of his hearts, and then we were kind of going from there. If you then turned around and said, oh well, Kakuzu still has access to all 5 nature transformations because he's mastered all 5 elements, that would definitely change the course of the conversation, right? As well as potentially, like, if Pain were to... Pain's a bad example. Just say Nagato himself. Like, Nagato himself were to start firing different nature transformations at Kakuzu, then could Kakuzu deal with them? Well, if he had the corresponding, like, counter... So if Nagato started throwing fire attacks at him and he had water, then he might be able to do that. But if he doesn't have his water heart, then saying that he could just use water anyway, you see how that changes the conversation? So I'm not necessarily disagreeing with, I think, your interpretation of like the semantics of it. I'm just saying that for the purposes of being clear, and especially like talking about a potential debate context as well, it's important to be precise with the language. That's all I'm saying. Kakuzu Holiday says, so how you explain Kakuzu have naming ninjutsu other than Earth? He created those jutsu through the hearts of the other shinobi. I've always seen it like it. That's a fine interpretation. Yeah, it's possible. But how can I say? So let's say that I had like a Pokemon, right? Yeah, that's maybe it's a good example. Let's say that I had like 5 different Pokemon that I was fighting with, and they each had a different fire type, a different element type that they had an affinity for. And so I like kept commanding my Charizard and say, hey Charizard, try to do this, try to do that. And then like he did this cool attack where it's like a fireball that he launches like a cannonball and explodes at a distance. And then he does another one that he like sweeps the ground with like this low rolling like flamethrower thing. And I kept like experimenting with him and telling him to do different things. And then I said, okay, I'm going to call that one like Searing Migraine. I'm going to call that one like Napalm Death or something like that, right? And then in a fight, somebody came up to me and wanted to do a Pokemon battle and said like, oh, this guy, he's mastered like, I have like a Pikachu, a Charizard, et cetera, like a Blastoise, a Scyther, and a whatever the other one I'm missing is. I don't remember. But yeah, so I have all these different elements, and this guy says, oh wow, this Pokemon master is a master of the elements. And I say, here's my signature technique, Searing Migraine, go Charizard. But then somebody knocks out my Charizard, I'm not going to be able to use Searing Migraine anymore. And I am no longer a master of the fire element. The implication that I can just like tell any of my other Pokemon to use that fire attack, or that I could do it myself, start like burping up fireballs or something, that would obviously be ridiculous, right? So obviously it requires a high degree of mastery and skill and dedication to get the Charizard to figure that shit out and be able to command him to use it in the right context. That's still a skill. It's still a very impressive skill, but it's different than like Ash turning into fucking what's that kid from Avatar, Zuko, and just like starting to like throw out fireballs on his own, right? Okay, so now we're in 3 different universes, but hopefully you get my point. So he controls them and have a good chakra control. Yeah, for sure. Not familiar with Pokemon. Does Pokemon have their own name jutsu, or he creates them alongside their master? Oh, so Pokemon, when you go out into the world and you find like wild Pokemon, and they're basically just like animals that are hanging out in fields and stuff and in caves and whatnot. And when you fight them, you then can have a team that's composed of them, kind of like Kakuzu's hearts, right? Like you carry them with you in your backpack or whatever, and then you can deploy them, you can summon them, and use them in combat. And the Pokemon, as they level up, they learn different abilities. Like I haven't played Pokemon in a long time, but like, so Charizard, for example, when you pick him up and you add him to your like roster, right? He has weaknesses against certain elements. He has strengths against certain elements, and then does it not say what his skills are really? As he levels up, he gets more and more skills like flamethrower and like wing attack and stuff like that. And please just show me the fucking skills. Oh, here we go. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Well, yeah, so like when you start off with him, he'll have a couple of abilities like this, and then like when he gets more and more levels, he'll be like, I want to try to learn this ability, will you let me? And if so, he'll pick up new abilities as you go. Hopefully that made sense. Anyway, they're all linked to Kakuzu's chakra network. Chakra is responsible for all his jutsu, the heart chakra nature. Yeah, I think you and I agree on this at the end of the day. I'm just objecting to like the way it was phrased, I think is misleading. But I agree with your perspective, Kakuzu. So do you talk? Kakuzu takes a heart, does a jutsu, and Kakuzu names it afterwards. It could be. I mean, like that's the thing. We don't really know. Like, false darkness is a really cool name. I like the idea that Kakuzu, grabs somebody's heart that can do electricity and then puts it in one of his masks, and then like off missions he's just sitting there being like, okay boy, okay, do a lightning bolt, lightning blast, lightning blade, like, and just like tries to get it to just do something, and it's running around like a dog, like trying to do electricity tricks, and he's like, ooh, that one was really cool, I'll name that false darkness, whatever. And like, but it could be that he sees his opponents use this technique, and then he's like, oh, okay. Like we talked before about how the individual hearts might have some of the consciousness of the original owners still left in them. So maybe it's like the Edo Tensei, right? Where the heart is capable of doing a lightning-style jutsu called False Darkness, and Kakuzu commands it to do it in the same way that Kabuto would command, Nagato to use his Chibaku Tensei, something like that. He obviously created those jutsu. He controlled them since he can use mudra to most of them. That's so goofy. I know it is kind of silly, but I like it. I like the idea that he has these little heart Pokemon that he's training, like finding people to battle with them. But no, I don't. We could agree or disagree about that, and that's totally fine. Like, a lot of this is me speculating and trying to like imagine how the system works under the hood. But my objection to the video is just saying maybe he's not aware of it, maybe it's not intentional, I don't know, but that phrasing, like mastered 5 chakra natures, that usually implies the way that is used elsewhere is consistent with somebody mastering the natures themselves. And all I want to do is establish that it is not proven that Kakuzu has done this, because there's ambiguity surrounding the way that he uses his hearts. So maybe he did off screen somewhere, but with the amount of information that we're given, I don't think we can safely say that he's mastered all the elements in the same way that fucking Nagato did. That's all.
With one lightning style False Darkness, not only did he block one of Kakashi's Rakiri, but he actually blocked 2 of them. It may look like
he kind of repeats himself there, but it's fine.
Like Kakashi is channeling one Raikiri between both hands.
Yeah, he needs the hearts to control all 5. I don't think he could do it on his own. That's really what I was just trying to say.
Stated that after Kakashi blocks False Dark,
it would have been more fair, more accurate for him to say, through the use of his hearts, Kakuzu masters all the elements. That I'd be like, okay, whatever.
That he has performed the Raikiri 4 times. Yet the only times Kakashi uses the Raikiri in the fight is the first time when he stabs through Kakuzu's heart, and the second time when he makes another one to charge at Hidan. So I don't know if I'm counting correctly, but that means 1 to attack Kakuzu, 1 to attack Hidan, and 3 and 4 to block False Darkness. Makes sense. Anyway, if you want to know how strong the Raikiri is, I highly suggest you go and watch my Kakashi Raikiri video. It will give you more context as to why this feat is impressive.
So, So I watched that video, and I also have a lot to. Well, I I guess I should ask you guys if you would want me to go and react to that video. It's older, I think, and I think a little bit rougher. So maybe it's not fair to hold it to the same standards or whatever as some of the newer videos. I mean, I know that like my first stream was to the extent that I am making an entertaining stream right now, which I hope I am. I understand that like my first one just a couple of months ago was not particularly good by comparison. So I'm not gonna hold somebody to expect that every single thing is going to be the same quality that they put out. But that being said, I did watch this, and I do kind of find it disappointing. The gist of it is basically that he seems to confuse the chakra, the Chidori blade. So it's not actually about like how strong the Rakiri is, if I remember correctly. It's just that like the Rakiri is stronger than the Chidori, and his argument for the Rakiri being stronger than the Chidori, even though they're the same fucking jutsu, is that Sasuke uses a technique called the Chidori blade, and the Chidori blade is a B rank jutsu in part 2, and the Rakiri is an A or S rank jutsu in part 1, and S rank jutsu are harder to learn. So therefore, the Rakiri is stronger than the Chidori, even though they're the same jutsu, and it's the Chidori blade. So there you go. That was a really weird one. Anyway, Our Brahma says he's trying to make the feat more impressive. Yeah, I do find the language to be a little bit deceptive. Well, maybe not deceptive because that implies an intent to deceive. I don't know if I would necessarily say it's the case there. I think that, especially talking to Kakuzu and Holidays over here, I can see why you... Like, I think that saying that Kakuzu has control to some extent over the 5 elements via the hearts, like, that is a fact. That's true. But I think that magic system, so to speak, that he's using is kind of cool and interesting, and I would rather have it be described as accurately as possible, as opposed to using this phrasing that is specifically used to describe other different things. So, like, again, to bring up Nagato, when he masters the elements, it's different from the way that Kakuzu masters them. So at the very least, I would have wanted to have seen more differentiation explaining how the hearts are actually working. That's really what it is. I don't want it to be confused with other things that it's not, and I don't want it to be like to have the specialness of it like watered down, if that makes sense. Dr. Pest says, I have a question here. I know that lightning release is superior to earth release. Now, what I wonder is if a chakra transformation can have other advantages. I say this because they retain Suigetsu with lightning release. Yeah, I think so. So I haven't looked into it super extensively, but like Naruto releases like the nature transformations. This chart over here is something that is a useful thing to look at, but different natures can reinforce one another's and have different counters. Lightning is strong against earth, but like a lightning jutsu can also help disable water. So I think there is nuance to it. Fire can be enhanced by wind, but fire can also work in tandem with lightning release. And I'm not sure, I don't know as much about the water releases, but like, yeah, like water and fire can be combined to create like boil release, although that's a Kekkei Genkai. So I think probably the best way for me to answer your question is yes, and it's complicated. But I would encourage you to read through this. The wiki article here on Naruto fandom is probably is pretty accurate from what I recall, and it kind of goes into, oh yeah, so here we go. Like, there's different ways of combining the nature releases to produce new releases, and they can connect with one another in sort of different synergistic ways. So yes, absolutely. So I would encourage you to check this out here. Yeah, Howard Brahma says, TBH, a Shinra Tensei making the Raikiri relevant in the first place versus still making a jutsu with your own same nature type isn't much of a comparison. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. If I'm understanding your point correctly, you could just well, hang on. Okay, so Kakuzu and Holidays, I think you'll probably disagree with this. That's totally fine. Let me know what you think. But what do you think of the idea that the Raikiri itself obviously has an AP value, right? Has some AP value, whatever it is. The Shinra Tensei obviously also has some AP value, whatever it is. So the Shinra Tensei clashes with the Raikiri and pushes it back and defeats it. So wouldn't that mean that the Shinra Tensei has a stronger AP than the Raikiri? Now, obviously, not universally, right? Because there could be typing advantages. There could be situations in which a stabbing attack is more effective than a blasting, like, concussive wave or whatever. But doesn't that kind of imply inherently that the Shinra Tensei has some sort of like not category, but like some sort of a mechanical advantage, at least during a clash? But I want to reread that to make sure I understood what you were saying, Auherd. Shinra Tensei making the Raikiri irrelevant in the first place. Just how many you with your same native type. That's true. Yeah, so, well, that's the other thing too, right? That, like, Pain has multiple ways of potentially negating an incoming false darkness. So it's not enough for Noodles, in my opinion, to just say false darkness equals 2 Raikiri and Raikiri equals damaging a path of pain or something like that. Therefore, like, double damage to a path of pain. You would have to demonstrate how it's actually going to hit and damage the path of pain in the first place. And the two most obvious counters are the Predapath absorbing it and the Shinra Tensei blasting it back, which can happen every 5 seconds. So basically, Kakuzu would need to be able to somehow get around the Predapath and the 5-second time window, which maybe he can do, right? You can then, like, actually make a very creative argument about, okay, well, Kakuzu can do this to create a diversion. He could, like, flank to the other side. He can, like, hide underground or whatever, right? You have to be more creative with the way that you describe the battle. I'm not saying it's like an instant defeater, but it is something that you need to address, I think. Like, how is Kakuzu going to deal with this? Not a rhetorical question, but a very important one. Kakuzu and Holidays then says, don't really know the difference, but if Raikiri and Chidori have different data book, they should not be the same. Raikiri and Chidori are literally the same jutsu. The difference between them is that, Kakashi invents the Raikiri, which he calls the Chidori at first, and it gets its name from the chirping of, like, the sound that it makes of all the... It sounds like 1,000 birds chirping, right? Chidori, I think, literally means, like, 1,000 birds. Tori means bird for sure. Then he teaches it to Sasuke, and then Sasuke keeps on calling it Chidori, whereas Kakashi's gets called the Raikiri because Raikiri just means, like, lightning cutter, like lightning bolt cut or something like that. And there's a legend around Kakashi that he supposedly used the Chidori to cut a bolt of lightning, so his Raikiri gets called lightning cutter. Going into part 2, Sasuke starts to do more complex things with his Chidori, like the Chidori Stream, the Chidori Blade, the Chidori Kusanagi, the Chidori Senbon. So he basically, like, turns the Chidori itself into a platform, like, an AR-15 or like a gun like that. It's a gun in and of itself, but let's just say Kakashi, gets an AR-15, then he gives one to Sasuke, and they both use it, and they both get really good at using it. But then eventually, like, Kakashi adds, like, an underslung grenade launcher, and then adds like an ACOG scope, and then adds, like, an extended clip or something like that, and night vision or whatever, and keeps on, like, modifying it. So then Kakashi is just as good as he ever was with his AR-15, and it fires the same caliber of bullets. That's got the same amount of kinetic force behind it. And then Sasuke does too. But now Sasuke, his is, like, a bit more bulky and unwieldy and is, like, kind of, like, weird looking, I guess. But he can also do all this other random shit that Kakashi's not necessarily doing with his. So which one is the strongest? Well, I guess, like, if Kakashi puts bigger caliber bullets or something, or, like, overpressurized bullets or something in his, then he might be able to do more damage with it. As a platform, though, like, the Chidori is more versatile, it's more flexible, it's capable of, like, being applied in more different situations, and so it's neither one is necessarily dealing more damage on hit. To kind of break away from the gun analogy, the damage here would be contingent on like input chakra. So whoever has the most chakra and the best amount of chakra control will be doing the most damage with it. But if you're talking about which jutsu is stronger overall, the Chidori is capable of doing everything that the Rakiri can do, and then also a whole bunch of other shit on top of it. Now, are the Chidori Senbon as strong as like Kakashi running up and doing like the stab thrust? No, not necessarily. Is a Chidori stream like as strong as that base Raikiri? Probably not. But again, like there's a variety of different ways that it can be used, and at the end of the day, the strength of it, of like the base form of it, should be the same because it's the same jutsu, only being modified based on the strength of the user, if that makes sense. What I'm trying to say is there's nothing inherent about the jutsu itself that is different. It's literally the same jutsu as a base platform, and then it's up to whatever the individual user decides to do with it. So let's see. Don't really know the difference. Oh yeah. Also the databook thing. I think I have to go back and check, but the Raikiri in the first databook is described. Fuck it. Let's just go look it up 1 second. No, that's not it. It's also a question of which data books you're looking at, right? Because if we look at Raikiri, stop with the ads, please. Oh, there's this as well. Oh, there's a few things over here. Chidori becoming Raikiri. The A-rank Chidori would be pure shape transformation, which concentrates a large amount of chakra into one's hand until it physically manifests as a destructive mass that sounds like the chirping of birds. By charging at the target at top speed, ideally dragging the ninjutsu against the wall to harness extra energy from the friction, it becomes a blade of a spear, which is thrust into the target to pierce through their body in a one-hit kill. Kakashi invents the Chidori when he was merely 13 years old. Significantly weaker without the right level of momentum. Okay. Kakashi combines Chidori shape transformation with nature transformation by concentrating. Oh, okay. So the base Chidori. Okay, well that changes things then. If that's the case, that changes things because if the Chidori's shape transformation in its base form doesn't have the electricity nature transformation in it, then it's the lightning chakra that goes into it that creates an inherently more powerful ninjutsu, which produces even greater destructive force, ravages the target's insides with electricity, and release streams of lightning. But Sasuke's Chidori does use nature transformation as well, right? Definitely in part 2. But in part 1 as well, right? Like he uses lightning. Can be used without needing to run at all and still delivers a lethal blow even from point blank range. I see. The first time he uses the improved version of Chidori in battles is during a massive thunderstorm. And Jutsu accidentally acts as the lightning rod as Kakashi charges an enemy. Okay. I see. He would go on to teach Sasuke the original Chidori during the Chunin exams, as his Sharingan would allow him to overcome its weakness. After Sasuke leaves Konoha, he masters lightning nature transformation and learns the Raikiri for himself. He still develops a number of original lightning jutsu, but they aren't explicitly based on the Chidori. Interesting, okay. So that's weird because I remember when Sasuke goes up against what's his name? Up against Deidara, that he says, like Deidara says, oh, that must be the Raikiri I've heard so much about, and Sasuke says, actually, this jutsu is called the Chidori or something like that. So I'm not sure about if this is entirely accurate, but basically, if Raikiri, okay, so by this definition, if by Chidori he means well, no, hang on. So there's this original version of the Chidori which doesn't have lightning transformation applied to it. Then Kakashi applies lightning transformation to it. Then he teaches Sasuke the original Chidori without lightning transformation. But then by the time Sasuke goes into part 2, Sasuke does have lightning transformation. And Noodles was talking specifically about stuff like the Chidori Blade and the Chidori Senbon and the Chidori Stream. And those techniques are Chidori plus lightning release, and we know this for a fact because it's the lightning release in them that defeats Deidara's clay bombs. So, yes. To answer your question, Kakuzu and Holidays, why would one be A rank and the other S? Because I think it's calibrated to wherever we're at in the story. So like in part 1 in Data Book 1, it is S rank. It's like one of the highest ranked jutsus in the world at that point. But then by the time we get to like, you know, the fights between Biju and Akatsuki, that like ranking system kind of gets called into question a little bit. But let me see. Okay, so Chidori is an A-rank ninjutsu created by Hatake Kakashi. It is also known as the S-rank ninjutsu Rakiri. In reality, they are the same ninjutsu. Chidori is a one-hit kill ninjutsu. It focuses a large quantity of chakra into the user's dominant hand, who then charges at the target to deliver a high-speed thrust. It requires the user to perform nature transformation. Okay, so here, this page is describing the Chidori as using nature transformation to create lightning chakra, and then shape transformation to make it discharge within the range and power that they need. See, that makes more sense, right? Because like Sasuke is gathering lightning chakra in his hand, and then once he gets to his opponent, he then thrusts and then immediately like does a discharge of shape transformation. And the reason why Kakashi wound up like not being able to do the Rasengan was he had the shape transformation built up in his hand, and then he tried to apply nature transformation to it, and then it basically created like that big like spark, that big burst, right? And that's how he invented the jutsu. After Kakashi learned the Rasengan, the pinnacle of shape transformation, he tried to combine it with nature transformation, and his teachers intended but found it too difficult. In reaction to his failure, he instead created the Chidori, which also combines nature and shape transformation, but wasn't nearly as difficult. But presumably because it's like this one big burst of energy, right? And he starts with nature as opposed to starting with shape. Is that correct? The drawback of this technique was that when used as a high-speed thrust, Kakashi moves too fast to see and react to an enemy's counterattack. It could still be used this way, but not without putting the user in danger, which made it a dangerous, imperfect technique. However, once he acquired Obito's Sharingan, he was able to perfect it using his Eye of Insight, which allowed him to perceive counterattacks and avoid them. At some point during Kakashi's career, he used Chidori to cut lightning, and okay. So even though it was still technically called Chidori, okay, so yeah, it always was the Chidori, and then Kakashi did this thing with the Raikiri, and that made him famous. And then so he decided to use the nickname for it. The ninjutsu itself, however, is unchanged. They both use the exact same hand seal sequence. Oh, okay, that's important. Does this actually show an image of some kind? No, it does not. Okay, so this might need to be updated. The exact same hand seal sequence. He describes them interchangeably, and they have the same effect and appearance. It's simply that... Okay, here we go. It's simply that when wielded by Kakashi, it is known as the S-rank Raikiri instead of the A-rank Chidori. It truly is because of its reputation and the feat of splitting a lightning bolt itself. Okay, so granted that this page might be out of date. This page is almost 10 years old. So it's entirely possible that there is data out there that conflicts with this. What we could do, we could actually talk about this next time if you want, is to go through and look for more examples of this. Let's just I want to actually look at what it says in the data books, because the data books are just like scanslations, right? They're not these editorials. So the first data book. Okay. Yeah, Chidori 1000 birds. Ninjutsu A rank, offensive close rank. Okay, so it's listed as A rank in part 1. Chidori is. That chirping penetrates even the most tenacious rocks. By activating the body, a great amount of chakra is brought forth and concentrated into one arm. Furthermore, by running a long distance, this turns into a high-speed stab of destructive power. The movement is a mere stab, but this great technique boasts such large power that it was able to open a hole in Gaara's sand defense. The released chakra gives off a chi-chi-chi-chi noise, which can be compared to birds' voices. When Kakashi uses it, Chidori is known as Raikiri, okay? And for Raikiri, Raikiri has an S rank. In one swing, the swift stab turns into a famous blade that can cut even lightning. The one who was said to have copied over 1,000 jutsu, Kakashi's single original technique, this is Rakiri. Guy says that the true nature of this technique is a regular stab, but the amazing time when you see this huge amount of chakra is gathered in the hand, Kakashi's arm becomes a famous blade that can cut through anything. Kakashi, named Konoha's greatest technician, created this ultimate secret art himself. It's really a simple technique perfected by honing it to the limit, an artisan's technique. Ending in a single point, a huge amount of chakra is a wonder even to the eyes of the enemy. Kakashi Chidori cut lightning. That legend is the origin of the name Rakiri. Okay, so based on what we're seeing here, it seems to corroborate what we read in that article previously, right? Like, the Rakiri and the Chidori are literally the same thing as a base platform. It's just that Kakashi uses it better and it's more advanced. And then when Sasuke uses it. Interesting, though, that it doesn't actually mention lightning here, but like, I mean, lightning cutter, but they don't. I guess in the first data book, they hadn't really talked much about. Well, hang on. 1 second. So, weird thing is that it doesn't have a release. Water clone. Now I'm down a rabbit hole. I'm curious. Lightning cutter. Does this have a release associated with it? No, just lightning blade. Oh, no, it is a lightning release. Okay. Okay, so interesting. So the wiki lists it as being a child jutsu to the Chidori. And lists the Chidori as a concentration of lightning chakra specifically. Okay. So yeah. And this is listing the Chidori as an A rank jutsu, but over here as an S rank jutsu. Ox, rabbit, monkey for the hand styles. And then different ones. Yeah, so it looks like there's different hand seals that Sasuke can do with the Chidori to then release it in different ways. And it has like, look at the all these different derived jutsu, as opposed to the Rakiri is just is one of the derived jutsu from the Chidori. So like the Chidori is the OG, and then the lightning cutter got the reputation from that feat that Kakashi did, and then Kakashi continued to like hone and stick with the base Rakiri in its basic form, and then Sasuke started to develop all of these other like different varieties of jutsu coming, like branching off of it. Okay, I think that hopefully that provides some clarification. Okay. Okay, I'll drink of water. Rakiri have variants too, says Kakuzu in Holidays. Yes. In that, the Rakiri is like a variant of the Chidori, and the Chidori has a variety of different varieties to it. So it's because Kakashi have a better chakra control, apparently. Yeah, I think that's basically it. Remember that. So these the S rank over here and the A rank are defined in Databook 1, and then by the time we get to Databook 3, I wish I had it with me right now. But the entry on the fuck is it called? The Chidori Blaze entry is it's a B rank jutsu. But again, that's 2 data books ahead. That's like hundreds of chapters ahead in the future, right? So there's a whole lot of shit that's changed in the story by then. And so my way of reconciling that was to just say that, yeah, compared to a fucking Biju buff, for sure, or even compared to like an Odama Rasengan from Sage Jiraiya or whatever else, then yeah. Kakuzu and Dr. Pest says, yes, and in fact, it can be said that Rakiri is in fact a variation of my original technique, which is Chidori, because according to the characters, Chidori and Rakiri are different. You created Rakiri Doctor. Oh, can you make one for me too? Man, I would love that. I'd pay good money for that. That's impressive. The closest thing I have to that is I don't know why he never explained it to me, and he still hasn't explained it to me. A friend of mine, like years and years ago, for my birthday, randomly just got me a fucking laser that is so powerful that like if you hold it up to a candle, it'll burn the candle and turn it on. I don't know why. I don't know if he like had it lying around and didn't need it anymore, Like, it can't have been cheap. I don't think he went out and just like bought it. But I also don't know why he would have a laser. Like, looking into it would just be a terrible idea. Let me just put it that way, right? So I have that, but it's not quite as cool as a Rakiri. Yeah, good job. We got a clone doctor in the chat. Should clone more Kakuzu followers. Okay. I think I'm gonna go another 20 minutes or so. It'll be 10:30. Then I'll probably wrap it up. So, yeah, great discussion, guys. I really appreciate the questions and chance to, talk about these jutsu in depth. So hopefully that's been okay to kind of go off of the video and just kind of talk about things kind of tangentially related. Let me know if you have any questions or if you want to go over any of that stuff. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going on.
Kakuzu's ninjutsu is also stated by Kakashi to be impressive because one normally cannot perform high-level ninjutsu unless they're compatible with the user's chakra nature.
That's true.
He notes that...
Can I read the water clone, please? I don't... Oh, I think I totally misunderstood what you were saying. I'm sorry. Let me go back up. Lightning release, don't really know the difference. I've always seen the Shino Tensei, except with some exception like Gudodama. Oh shit, what are the Gudodama? Oh, right, okay. So why would one be A rank and the other one S? Rakiri have variants. It's true. Oh, in the data book. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said something in the chat, and then I thought Dr. Pest was saying that he was cloning jutsu. Man, I'm getting tired. I'm sorry. Just want to fucking wild goose chase over here. By the way, if you guys want to check out any of this stuff on your own as well, it's all on Naruto Versity. I'll post a link in chat. But yeah, let's read it. Water clone technique. Users Momochi Zabuza. This body born of water completely endowed with the user's ability. With water as an ingredient, this ninjutsu creates a clone of the user. With water, a firm, real body can be created, so the user's abilities such as taijutsu can remain the same. Furthermore, as multiple clones can be created at the same time, it is a jutsu that can be used freely at will. Zabuza specializes in this jutsu, and at that time Naruto and Sasuke could not even compete with Zabuza's water clone. The first water clone is seen through, but the second one was not reckoned on. The clone spawned from the water there would be like pictures here. I'm guessing these are like under the various like images of it. The clone spawned from the water surface puts fear in its opponents. Even though it is called a clone, the strength of its taijutsu is at the original's level. Even Sasuke cannot oppose it. Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's sort of similar to a shadow clone, but it's a solid clone that is relative in taijutsu ability to the original creator. That makes sense. That's cool. Yeah, sorry, I was like, oh, we're doing clones, we're cloning after, we're creating jutsu. Okay, that all makes sense. So glad we figured that out. Thank you.
This is impressive because
this is all
Kakuzu
true.
has already shown usage of 3 chakra natures, and later in the fight, Kakuzu actually shows usage of all 5.
Again, he does show all 5 in the anime, but we don't show we don't see all 5 in the manga. And I hopefully made it clear before that I think it's totally reasonable to use manga feats if you want to talk about those, or anime feats rather. But if you do so, then you're opening the door for your opponent, if you're having a debate, to use anime feats as well. And keeping in mind that like the feats that Pain has are very, very different. He has like more feats of resisting damage from Naruto, for example, in the anime. So if you're gonna talk about the anime, that's okay. Just make sure to make it clear that that's what's happening, and understand that then if you're really trying to be thorough, you're going to need to do extra research for like anti-feats or whatever from the anime as well. Kakuzu says they didn't say it's 10% of the chakra user like in the manga. So you're saying that the water clone in the manga is specified to have 10, like to consume 10% of its user's chakra? Okay. Yeah, I guess they should have mentioned that if that's the case.
It's also worth to mention that Hidan claims Kakashi is the first to avoid his wind-style jutsu combination, which is described as a routine attack.
Yeah, to be clear, the wind style pressure damage routine attack is he doesn't say it's a routine attack. He says it's a routine. Yeah, I wanted to mention this the other day because I actually looked this up. So routine definition. If we look at so a sequence of actions followed let me try that again. A sequence of actions regularly followed or performed as part of a regular procedure. There's also another definition that's like, if you've ever heard of the term dance routine, or theatrical number, right? Like a worked out part of an entertainment or sports contest that may be often repeated, right? So what Kakuzu is saying here, and specifically because like Hidan winds up, Hidan has engaged in this attack with Kakuzu. Their wind style pressure damage combo attack is a routine that they do, right? Now, they could have said routine attack, and it may be a routine attack. It may be something that they do often, frequently, maybe even every fight for all we know. But what Hidan is saying here is that Kakashi is the first person to survive against this particular rehearsed, choreographed, performed set of movements. You can practice a dance move like 1,000 times in your house without demonstrating it to anybody, without ever actually performing it, and then go to perform it on stage and say, check out my new dance routine, right? And even though it's the first time, it would still be a routine by that definition. So, the clone is 10% of the user's chakra. Okay. Do you know, does it say that in the Zabuza fight? I'm curious, is that something that you're are you trying to bring that up because, or did you want to talk about that because Kakuzu uses a water clone in the anime? At least I think he does. But anyway, this is all just to say that the fact that something is a routine doesn't necessarily mean it is routine, but it could be.
To avoid his wind-style jutsu combination, which is described as a routine attack. The reason this is impressive is because routine means that Kakuzu uses this attack regularly in his fights, and yet Kakashi has been the only one to survive despite Kakuzu fighting multiple Biju and Jinchuriki.
Okay, yeah, uses it in combination with Hidan. It's like the wind component of the attack, like maybe you could say that wind style pressure damage itself, like the blast itself, is a Kakuzu special. Like he can do it on his own. But at the end of the day, what he's talking about is his combination attack with Hidan together is what, what's his name? What Kakashi managed to survive. I would also like to know what multiple Biju and Jinchuriki we're talking about here. Could you please show which multiple Biju and Jinchuriki were actually affected by this technique? Can you demonstrate which technique, or like which fight specifically that this routine was used in? I would really like to see that.
The last argument is a bit speculative, but
Kakuzu Holidays says that Kakashi in the anime had to use the first gate to defeat the water clone. You mean? Cool. Okay.
I still think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah. See, this is why I think it's cool to talk about the anime. You just got to be clear about what your source is, and to be fair about your, like, if this video itself isn't a debate, but it's used as part of like the ongoing conversation. So if you're having a conversation like that with other people, especially if there's a competitive aspect to it, you should be like clear and fair in specifying your sources and then making sure that your opponents, quote unquote, have access to that same information.
The last argument is a bit speculative, but I still think it's worth mentioning.
Okay.
Kakuzu also has 5 autonomous hearts that are more powerful than Kakashi and can fly.
I don't agree that each one of his individual hearts are more powerful than Kakashi, especially since Kakashi was able to block False Darkness. When have we ever seen that each of the individual hearts, like Kakashi can also block Wind Enhanced Fire, so that's 2 hearts working together. We don't have any scaling in the manga that shows that any of those hearts would win like a one-on-one fight against Kakashi. I don't think that's true at all.
Fly around the battlefield destroying any foe to Kakuzu.
They can jump. I know that that we've talked about this before, Kakuzu and Holidays, but like, I don't know that we really get to see them being particularly great, like aerodynamic flyers, and like they can jump around. That's fine. Maybe they can fly a little bit with those like vestigial wings. But saying that they can fly around the battlefield defeating any foe,
are more powerful than Kakashi and can fly around the battlefield destroying any foe to Kakuzu.
like really is that a fair statement? Isn't that kind of an NLF? Like, how exactly are they going to defeat any foe to Kakuzu? Let's say Kakuzu was fighting Kinkaku and Ginkaku, because they're on that battlefield as well. How are the hearts going to fly around and defeat Kinkaku and Ginkaku? But what are they going to do to them exactly? Kakuzu and Holiday says, actually, False Darkness can do more than 2 Lightning Spear based on Databook, meaning if he did 3, they all died here. Oh, does it... Do you remember what it says in the Databook? Can he do, like, an arbitrary number of different branches with the same strength? That'd be cool. But I guess regardless of how many forks the ability has, isn't it still, like, the same amount of chakra that he's committing to the attack? It's not like he can just put any... infinite amount of chakra into the ability, right? Like, he still has a fixed amount of I guess maybe he can scale it up or down, but like he has to build up the chakra and then release it. So
he also has some tendrils that he can extend his melee range with, and
I don't know if Kakashi can beat fire. Oh yeah, he can probably beat fire with his water wall. Like, he just can't beat like overpower wind enhanced fire. Oh, in the False Darkness data book. Okay, cool. I'll have to take a look at that. Yeah, I need to actually. I started scanning in some of the stuff from the 3rd data book and from the Funo Show handbook, so I'll hopefully have them up soon. I can start posting them in the Discord.
any foe to Kakuzu. He also has some tendrils that he can extend his melee range with, and a grapple range with, and even dig underground to surprise attack people as well.
Okay, so something I want to clarify about this is that in character, we don't really see Kakuzu put his hands underground or his hearts underground to surprise attack people. If by that he means that like the hands will jump out and try to stab and claw and like fuck people up in like swap hands or at least hand with them. It's possible that maybe he could do that, but that might also be out of character, because if he's sending a hand with an exposed heart like that just out at an opponent, it's going to be very vulnerable. And he only does it here, or he specifically does it here, so that he can break the connection between the Shikamaru's like shadow possession and Kakuzu himself with that chakra blade kunai thing. So basically, he's not surprise attacking Shikamaru. He's just breaking himself out of the shadow possession quote-unquote prison. I think it would be a really bad idea for him to go around like shooting his arms off at people at range, because then the hearts themselves would be vulnerable. So I'll not like accept this as an anti-feat to Kakuzu's intelligence. But Kakuzu and Holiday says, Kakashi to me is only relative to Kakuzu's ninjutsu, but that's it. Yeah, we talked about that before. I think I agree that Kakuzu is beating Kakashi in a one-on-one almost certainly, although what we wound up disagreeing about last time is whether or not the Kamui would be effective. And I think I was like, he could use Kamui if Kakuzu like started to rip out his heart, and then you were like, by the time he did that, his tendrils would be embedded in his flesh and he'd be like ripping out his heart, so it'd be too late or something like that, right? So I think we'll probably wind up disagreeing about that, but that's okay. Like, at the end of the day, if you ask me to just like knee-jerk react to say who I think would win, probably Kakuzu. He only did it in Road to Ninja and the anime. He can do it in character if he can win a situation. Oh, so you're saying that like in Road to Ninja, I don't remember that, but you're saying that Kakuzu can actually like bury his hearts underground or like have them like pop out at people, like he does that in other situations.
Kakuzu also can enhance his taijutsu strength and durability with one of his best jutsus, the diamond armor.
just gonna say this once, and I'll try not to be pedantic and say it every fucking time, but the plural of jutsu is jutsu.
Kakuzu's taijutsu and ninjutsu strength is not the only important aspect of this fight, as I believe Kakuzu's durability and resilience is truly what makes him so difficult to deal with. Kakuzu was able to completely withstand a direct paw strike from perfect Jinchuriki Yugito.
Yeah, we don't need to get into the... Oh, he grabs Naruto's feet in the movie. Okay, I'll have to go back and watch that again. No. Cool. I need to go back and watch that for a few reasons, but yeah, I'll check that out. Thanks. If that's the case, then so between you and me, I would say, okay, then I guess he can just do that. That's fine. Like, I don't have a problem with it. I also don't think that Road to Ninja is canon at all. But that doesn't mean that the way the character's abilities are presented is necessarily like invalidated. Like, it could be entirely reasonable. Wait, weren't they all like clones in Road to Ninja? Are you talking about at the start of the movie where they all attack the village and they're all like clones, like white Zetsus or something like that? Can they use all of their like normal abilities? I thought they could basically just do taijutsu when they showed up because they were fake, but I might be misremembering. Like, Itachi doesn't show up and start like throwing Amaterasus around, right?
Same Yugito that could damage KCM1 Naruto and...
Okay, yeah, here, I forgot.
Right, from perfect Jinchuriki Yugito.
I'm gonna go back 1 second.
Deal with. Kakuzu was able to completely withstand a direct paw strike from perfect Jinchuriki Yugito.
Setting aside the fact that I disagree with the perfect Jinchuriki thing, but you've already heard this a million times before. Yes, he did completely withstand it, but you also need to like consider some scaling. Like, where does that scale? How strong is that paw strike? Which he's about to do, so let's hear it out.
The same Yugito that could damage KCM1 Naruto.
Okay, so this is not the same Yugito, because as you can see, this Yugito is small cat, and this Yugito is big cat. And the difference between those two things is that one is small and one is big. And so they're not the same because they're different. This cat also is attacking as part of a combination of different attacks, which you only got to see it for a brief moment. It's a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. Very quick zoom in there. But you'll notice that there's a cat claws attack, there's a leech slip attack, and then there's also a coral palm attack. And all of this happens as part of a sequence of other attacks that have also hit Naruto. You see that he has like a little
that can damage case
impact thing over there. That's because somebody else was coming from here and hit him on this side, and then Yugito came in from over here and hit him on that side. So whatever damage Naruto is taking here is a combination of the attacks of several different Jinchuriki. Now, if you can somehow isolate the amount of damage that Yugito over here is doing to him, then you will have some scaling. However, again, it's not a one-to-one scaling against this because her anatomy is very different. And again, how are you going to do that when it's part of this elaborate chain of multiple attacks? And after this, let's see if I can find it. 1 second. I think it's really coral. I didn't write down coral palm. What's wrong with me?
KCM1 Naruto.
It's got to be. I must have written down Yugito. 1 second. Okay, there should be one more. 567. Just want to put some extra context for this because it's important. I think this is where we're at. Yeah, this is good. Okay, one in advance. All right, so this is chapter 566 for reference, and this is right when they go into their V2 mode. And so, let's see. Here we have Chome coming in V2 and doing a bug bite, to which Naruto says, "You." He seems to block it. Seems to be okay. The Yugito now does cat claws, smacks him down, and he does seem to be upset about it. He does say "arg." Okay, leech slip from Gyuki. But then Naruto, who's still on his head. Oh yeah, okay. So he's like, "Ow," right? He's clearly. Oh wait, no, that's Gyuki saying "ow." Okay, and then was it Han who comes in from behind, smacks him with Coral Palm, and then he gets the Coral Palm on his back, and then he falls down onto the ground, and then, or onto B rather. B protects him from Floral Mountain. And then Kokuo comes in, bashes B, and then he can't move because he's incapacitated by Coral Palm. And then here comes Guy, comes in with Kakashi, saves him, and then Guy does this and breaks the Coral Palm off of his back because it's still on there. He still can't move, right? And he does this rock crush and then breaks him. So Naruto gets smacked a couple of times and then has this thing put in his back and then falls down onto Kyuki and then has his fucking back smashed in by Guy, and then he just gets up and he's fine. So if you want to use that feat from Yukito in describing, in like scaling to Kakuzu versus Pain, you would need to demonstrate how much damage Yukito did. And even if she did some damage there, it's imperceptible and unquantifiable. It's just, as far as we can tell, Naruto is fine. Now, you could say, oh, maybe he just healed super, super fast, and that would be true. It is entirely possible that Naruto got seriously wounded and then healed. That's possible. The problem with having like a debate about it, though, is that we still can't quantify how much that is, which kind of sucks, but it does unfortunately mean that we can't really use that feat in any meaningful way if we're breaking things down for scaling or for like a debate or anything like that. To catch up, Kakuzu and Holiday says, even if it's not canon, yeah, Zetsu clone, but he can use some of their ability. Okay, yeah, I'll have to go back and check it out then. I feel like I missed that, but that sounds cool. That sounds fun. There we go. Kakuzu and Holidays also says, Kakuzu has shown he can dig his hand underground. Through Heart's distraction, he can grab someone, so free it for Hearts. Do you think he can, like, fully, like, grab and restrain and hold somebody with his full grip strength when it's detached from his body? Dr. Pest then says the attack transformed into Maratabi was called Great Cat Claw Attack. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that it actually had a name. I know that that the Cat Claws attack that Yukito uses in V2 is called like Cat Claws, and it has a databook entry. You're saying that... Let me take a look at that. You're saying it's called Great Cat Claw Attack. Well, I didn't know that. I've been like talking about this shit for for like over a year, and I still didn't know that. I appreciate it. Great cat. Great cat. Nope. In here? Oh, this one. Manatabi or Yukito and her tail be smoke. Rap. There was a solid hit with their right paw. Oh, okay. So, interesting. So it's considering the one that... oh, okay. So, both Yukito in Tailed Beast mode, Yukito in Biju mode, and also Maratabi swiping Madara later on, the wiki is calling both of those things this particular attack, Great Cat Claw Attack. Okay, that's fine. Cool, I didn't know that that was like an official term. I appreciate you pointing that out. Thank you. Kakuzu Holiday says, if Edo Yuito version 2 is shown to do some damage to full KCM Naruto, then Big Cat should do way more, and KCM Naruto's resistance is up. I guess so, but like... I'm trying to think about that. Third data before the cat. I need to think about that a little more, because I think that you're probably not like... You're probably fair in your statement overall, and especially when I was talking before about like the Asura path getting damaged by some amount by Choji, it would be hypocritical for me to just throw it away as completely like unusable or something like that. I think what it's going to come down to is yeah, so I think what we would need to do, and I'll give this some more thought before the next stream, what I think we would need to do is we would need to set out the scaling chain of like, okay, so if Yukito does manage to hurt Naruto, then how durable is Naruto overall? And then what percentage, like, how much higher does Maratabi's like paw strike scale above that V2 Yukito's attack? Because on the one hand, you would assume that the giant cat is probably going to hit harder, but this version of Yukito might be moving faster and might be attacking with her claws. When Kakuzu gets hit by it, obviously he reaches up and grabs the pad of the paw, and if Yukito manages to hit Naruto with the actual piercing part of her claws here, that might affect things. So basically, I think you might have a good point. I think it would be worth like further research, so to speak. I still think it's going to be difficult to use it like in a practical way during a debate, but I do think it's fair to say that like as long as we can show that KCM1 Naruto is hurtable by Yukito, then we can try to scale that to Kakuzu's durability. That's fine. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. The next step would be to look at other things that manage to hurt Naruto and see like how much they hurt him. But I think what you're gonna find, you're gonna kind of run into though, if you were to try to debate that, is just like, how do you isolate how much damage Yukito did there, and then how do you wind up like calling it back to the Pain versus Kakuzu context? Not saying you can't do it, but I'm saying like I would personally find it challenging. So Kakuzu and Holiday says if Edo Yukito version 2 is shown to do, oh yeah, okay. And KCM Naruto's resistance is up, yep. I think so. I don't know if his well yeah, okay, well that that starts a whole conversation about durability. Like, is KCM's durability higher than Sage Mode durability, for example? Dr. Pest says, okay, I'll say it. I feel like Jinchuriki should have been the main protagonist of Shippuden alongside Naruto instead of being relegated to tertiary plane. Yeah, it's a shame that we didn't get to spend more time with them. We barely got to see some, like Roshi and Utakata. Utakata seems so fucking cool. I saw him, that he had a fight against Pain in the anime, which was awesome. But, it should have been in the manga, and it wasn't, unfortunately. Dr. Pest says, oh, people will have to leave you, but it was fun. And remember, if you need greetings from Yukito, let me know. Oh, yeah. Well, I really appreciated all the questions and the engagement, Dr. Pest. It's great to have you. Hope you have a great week, and we'll be back again next Sunday for more Naruto chats. Feel free to leave a comment if you have anything you'd like to cover or any follow-up feedback. But if not, no worries. I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Kakuzu and Holiday says Maratabi attack with her paw 2 versus Kakuzu. Since big cat have way more chakra output than little cat, KCM Naruto have some damage on his cheek right after it. Little damage while Kakuzu had nothing at all. I mean, you might have a point there. I think I want to like think about that a bit more. To be fair, and honestly, like I'm pretty tired at this point, and I don't want to just like give you a half-assed response. But to kind of reiterate what I was saying, like, yeah, if you can actually demonstrate that scaling chain, that could be something that you could use to argue for Kakuzu's durability. I'm not convinced right now, but I'll give it some thought to try to be fair. And actually, think that might be a good time to kind of wrap it up for the evening. And, so Kakuzu and body resistance should be better than KCM Naruto, even though it might shake the world. Well, I'm gonna think about that. I don't want to get into a whole thing right now. But by the way, John, do you have the third data book still? Heard it got taken off of Narutoversity. Yeah, H&H, I do. I purchased it from Crunchyroll a little while ago, and like that video that I did on Itachi versus Pain, I scanned like all the third data book stuff in there is just stuff I scanned manually. But then over the past year, like I moved homes and I lost. Like my computer broke and just a bunch of shit happened, and so I now have found my copy of the third data book, and I now actually have a scanner, and so I can start. I have already started actually getting some of that stuff back in, and I can post it in, like I can post the scans in the Discord as I go, and then hopefully in the next couple of streams I'll be able to just kind of show them off as well. Definitely be helpful for some of this discussion, I know. Yeah. So with that being said, gonna go get some sleep. Got a big week ahead of me, and I think I'm gonna call it for now. Really, really do appreciate all the questions and the feedback and the like mini debates, so to speak. Always a great time talking with y'all. I think I'm going to post a couple of posts. One, I'm going to post a poll maybe in a couple days, because I'm curious what people's time zones are and what times work best for you. I know Kakuzu in holidays, it's got to be like, what, 3 or 4 a.m. where you are, and the Egg Prophet, or I'm sorry if I'm not getting your name correctly, yeah, the Egg Prophet, also mentioned that they were in a time zone where making the streams is kind of hard. So I was totally down to maybe start earlier in the day if it'd be easy for you. Oh, bye, Howard. Thanks for stopping by. It's good to see you. But yeah, so I'll post a poll, and if you guys want to chime in and let me know like what times work well for you, I can adjust the timing of the stream. That's no problem. And then, so I was thinking like maybe doing from like 2 to 6 on PM Eastern time on Sundays instead of 7 to 11. Yeah, you're making good arguments. I gotta run. I gotta run and like go prep for our next meeting. But yeah. Oh, sorry, H&H. You said you were wondering because you have a link to, and didn't know if you knew it. Yeah, if you would be so kind as to send me either a PM or something in the server or whatever, that would be great. I'd be happy to take a look at that. I think you might have actually a while ago, and I just totally spaced on it. So if you're down to do that, then that would be great. Thank you. But yeah, so quick summary. Tomorrow I'll post a poll about timing, and if you guys have feedback on like when the timing of the stream would be better for you or not, just let me know. And then otherwise I'll be at the regular time next Sunday. Probably still going to do a gaming stream on Thursday. And then as for next Sunday, I would be happy to continue going on with the video. I'd also be happy to, we never actually talked about the debate with, or like listened to any of the debate on the Kid Buu versus Buu thing with Arrow and Taurus. So I'd be open to doing that too. And I think somebody also asked about like Dabura versus Cell at some point. So that'd be something I'd be open to as well. So I'll post a poll in a few days as well. Let me know if you have any preferences for the topics. I'm open to being flexible with that. Otherwise, more Kakuzu versus Pain next Sunday. Hope you all have a great week and take care.